Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
And welcome to the Friday night edition of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight, my name is Dave Scott, and we're so glad to have you with us. Jessiy Hawthorne is here. We're going to learn about her personal experiences with ghosts, poltergeist, aliens. Yeah, she's got some aliens, and you know we love our alien stories around here. We'll get to Jessiy momentarily, but first we have to say hello to each and every one of you in our chat room so far. We got Tim Mothman and his goatee sharing a gold medal tonight. Brown Dwarf with a silver, Race Fan with a bronze medal. The lovely and talented Kira, how are you? Nice to see you. Melvin from Mars, good to have you here. Cosmic Joe and Dino Bravo, thanks for coming on in. Karen in the Woo Train, good to see you. Cosmic Joe, good to have you here again. Major Lee, good morning to you. Do you ever sleep? Seriously, do you ever sleep? Eternity Eternal, thanks for coming on in. Lee the Bee, T-Bone, my man, in the pride of New Westminster right there. W. Decker, good to have you here. Thunderhead, number 32 in your program, starting at left wing tonight from Stockholm, Sweden. Lars Jansson. Lars will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. Human Carl is here, a great veteran of the United States Air Force. Thank you, Human Carl, for your great service to all of us. Aloha Dave in Mexico, nice to have you here. Paramarv, Thomas Rock, Polly Rotterman, good evening to you. Hello there, Michael Morris, good to have you here. As we continue on with our roll call, there's Mama Susan and Skip to Malou, good morning to you. Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. Purple-haired Pixie Lara, how you doing this evening? Edgett, welcome to SOR Chat. FU, Zaddy. Zaddy will be throwing FUs after the show. Line up to the right of the studio if you want an FU, to the right of the studio. Continuing on with our roll call, we have Little Cam over on Twitch, bench pressing 665 pounds tonight, 87 times. Yeah, he's jacked up for tonight's show. Good evening, Chris. Teen, how are you? Noble Patrick, nice to have you here. Kitty Caddywhack, thank you for coming on in. Hello there, W. David Page, Marty Burback, good to see you both. Silent Listen from South Texas, how you doing, my man? Tip your cowboy hat to us if you don't mind. We'd appreciate it. Scrolling on down, who's next? Robert Anthony, nice to have you here. Digger Dog, always a pleasure to see you. Paul Demon and Thomas Saba, welcome to SOR Chat. Deanna says hi. Do you know Thomas? Jesse, do you know Thomas? Is he one of your people? He's new to us here. Sweet Robbie G. He's got the After Hours show this weekend. You're going to want to check that out because Rob's just freaking awesome. Deanna Ann. Oh, that's the Deanna. I get it there. So, Deanna Ann, welcome to SOR Chat again. And that screwed me up there for a second. Oh, well, cool. And who else? Cosmic Joe kicking off the super chat tonight. It is a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So thank you, Cosmic Joe. Gamer Quest, how you doing? Good to see you. Pissing me off, Evan Walters. Pissing me off. Necessary Dialogue, what's happening? Alien Critter, good to see you. And Contrary One, thank you for coming on in. Stargazer, Noodles is back. I am Pam. I am Pam. I am frickin' Pam. That's right. Hold on. Hello and welcome to the podcast and radio side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We always appreciate you coming on in to listen to what we do on a nightly basis. So we are talking to Jessiy Hawthorne tonight. I love experiencers. This is why we have her on tonight. Ghosts, paranormal, supernatural events. She got some aliens. It all works out. We're in roll call right now as we await the arrival of Bill WD-40 to lube us up for tonight's show, because you always want to go into a show nice and smooth. You never want that rigidness. It's uncomfortable. That's why we lube up every night. Mongo, how you doing? Good to see you. And it looks like we're caught up. Hey, I want to remind everybody, not only is a super chat open and a wonderful way to support what we do, you can join the SOR Space Travelers Club on Patreon as well. You can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. You can wear our stuff out in public and be happy about it. Throw those horns up, everyone. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I'm your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters, and we welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. You can join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got a fun show of experiences to talk about. Jessiy Hawthorne is going to be here momentarily to talk about her personal experiences with the strange and unknown. Then in hour 3, Steve Stockton from Among the Missing joins us with another spooky story. Follow that up with Nicole Sakich, who has some special guests coming on for the UFO report. All right. I say we get right to it. How do you feel about that? I feel good. I hope you do too. Jessiy Hawthorne has had abilities and paranormal experiences her whole life. She grew up on an Indian burial ground in a small town in Illinois. She has seen and experienced huge shadow figures with red eyes, things that moved around, thrown around. She's been grabbed and touched, disembodied voices in her ears, UFOs. She's got some aliens, and it goes on. She calls herself a magnet for high strangeness. Yeah, this is why we love this show. And this is what gets me excited about doing this show. It's great to have on all the researchers come on in, or the authors promoting their books. But the heart and soul of what we talk about on Spaced Out Radio is all about the experience and the experiencer. Jessiy Hawthorne, thank you so much for being on Spaced Out Radio for the first time to tell your story. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, and thank you for having me on. It's an honor.
Looking back on your life, now that you're a podcaster, you're a researcher, you're an experiencer, did you ever think that this entire phenomena would encompass your entire life?
Honestly, no, and I just started being public about it back in November. I only told close friends and family about a lot of the stuff that happened to me, and yeah, in November, I don't know, I just decided to be more public about it after going to a few conventions and hanging out with Mr. Dave Schrader, the TV sensation. So I decided to go on a podcast and talk about it. And then more people wanted to talk to me about it. And I figure if I've had these experiences, I know other people have, and maybe I can help someone by being open about what's happened to me because nobody talked to me and I thought I was alone, and I don't want anyone else to feel that way.
That's a very good point. Nobody should feel that way. We should be able to have these conversations like we're talking about our day, how you enjoyed the hockey game last night, how you enjoyed, walking the dog through the park. It should be normal conversation. It really should. And, the one thing I loved about you was, and for our YouTube audience and our radio audience, you probably don't know, but on Facebook a couple weeks ago, I actually put out a call for experiencers. I wanted experiencers with stories. And Jessiy was one of the people who reached out. And when she told me a little bit about her story, I was like, it only took about 30 seconds for me to say, yeah, we're booking you a date on this show. But you also mentioned a good friend of ours as well, Dave Schrader, who is one of the greatest people in the paranormal world, in my opinion. Not only is he a consummate professional radio host, but he's also just a genuine nice guy too. So,
Mm-hmm.
I love him to death. And if Dave, if you're listening, I'm trying to butter you up so I can go to some of them conventions with you. But no, it is truthful. It is very truthful. So for you, Jessiy, when did this all start for you? Let's go way back in time. Well, not that far back, but in your timeline on how you started having experiences.
One of my first memories that I just recently got back. So one thing to know about me is I died in 2008. So that kind of screwed with a lot of my memory, but a lot of
Oh,
stuff has been coming back.
hold on. You died in 2008.
Yes.
What happened there? Stop at the presses here. What happened there?
So I have well, I have scoliosis, and when I was 11, I had to have one rod put in, but my body obviously grew, and I had to have two more put in. And then in 2008, I started coughing up blood, and me being stubborn, I'm like, "Oh, I'm fine, I'm fine." And my one friend was like, "No, we're going to the ER." And the doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong until they airlifted me to Rush in Chicago, which is like a very big hospital. They found out that one of the screws from my rods punctured my right lung. And so I ended up getting a third of my right lung removed because they couldn't take the screw out because it's in my back. And I guess I died on the table 3 times. Twice they brought me back. The third time they actually called the time of death. And then I just came back. So yeah, that's something else interesting with me, I guess. And um I've been getting memories back ever since then, but there's like a certain time frame, 2010 to 12, where things are kind of foggy.
So going back though, but you've had these experiences since childhood.
Yes. So my very first memory that actually popped up after I started doing CE5s was I was probably 5 maybe, and where I grew up, there was 5 acres of woods around us, and then our house, and then across the street was a golf course. So in one of the yards, there was like a small creek. And so I was back there with, I think my dad was building like a sky fort is what we called them back in the 80s and 90s. And so I went back there to swing and I saw something like rustling in the bushes by the creek. It like went to the left and then went to the right. And then I saw like the top part of an ET's head. I could see like the eyes, and then the bushes were down here, and it just like moved back and forth. And I know I was terrified. I don't remember if I ran back to the house or not. I think I did, but that's one thing I kind of want to go into. I'm thinking of doing some hypnosis sometime to see what actually happened that day. So that's one of the first experiences that I remember as a kid. And then after that, from what my mom has told me, I would never go in that yard by myself, even during the day. And then after that, started getting, I don't know, uncomfortable feelings a lot of the time on the
Right.
property. And couldn't figure out why. And then I started seeing like shadow figures in the woods. Didn't really know what they were, and I was a kid, so I was just like, what is that? That's weird. And in our house, we had windows that were at the top, not like waist up, were normal windows. They were at more of the top of the wall. So one day I was in my room and I saw one of the shadow figures' heads peering in the window. So it had to be 8 or 9 feet tall to reach that tall of a window. And I would always actually, I slept in my brother's crib for a few years from seeing the shadow figures in the window. And one time, one appeared in our room in the corner, and I saw the red eyes, and I screamed and went in my brother's crib because he was a few years younger than me. And my mom actually has told me I slept in her bed until I was about 13.
Well, I mean, hey, when it comes to safety as a child, where do you turn? You turn to your parents.
Hmm. And I was lucky my mom was understanding. She didn't think I was like crazy or anything like that. She, to this day, she still has never experienced anything, and she wishes that she had. But she never like was like, "Oh, you're lying to me. That, that's not true." She never said that to me. She was just like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." Well, and she would try to figure out what it was, and she was fine with me sleeping with her. So
Now, growing up with these experiences, did your mother believe you with what you were seeing, or was it something that she was like, "Oh, that's just your imagination. Just go back to bed"?
um I believe that she believed me because she never, if I went screaming in the room, she didn't push me out of the bedroom like, "Stop it, you're having night terrors, go back to bed." She didn't do that. She was just like, "Okay, come on, come in the bedroom. That's fine. You can sleep with us." And there were times where her and my dad's door was locked, so I would start banging on the door and screaming under the door to let me in, and it would take a few minutes, but they would unlock the door and let me come sleep with them. I'm just like, "Oh god, that's embarrassing." Like, why did I do that as a child?"
Yeah, no kidding, right? No kidding. So, as you were going through this and you were going through the idea of having to learn about these shadow people and these paranormal experiences, did the shadow people continue to come around? Did you think that they were attracted to you?
Yeah, I felt like I was a light bulb. Especially because nobody else, my little brother didn't see anything until he was, 13 or 14, when he challenged it. Then he saw it. Um, and then my mom never seen anything. My dad passed when I was 10, and that was very traumatic for me because I saw his body when I was 10. Um, so I believe I shut everything off for a while, and then it came back around puberty time because then I started getting, I guess you could say, messed with again. But for a few years, I had the first surgery when I was 11, so a year after my dad passed, and then was healing from that. And then puberty hit, and then I started getting that horrible feeling in my stomach again when I wanted to go outside, and feeling like I wasn't alone, feeling like I was being watched, swearing that I saw stuff. And then it's like everything clicked, and I'm like, "Oh my God, I forgot about all of this. Okay, here we go again." All this stuff's happening again.
Was it wave after wave of incidents that were happening? Or was it once every, few weeks, once in a blue moon?
It was weekly, I believe. It would be one thing or another. I would see something or hear something, or something would get thrown, especially when it came to outside. So I would have friends over, and being teenagers, having cigarettes and drinking on the porch and all that in the country. And we had a propane tank. So we would hear little dings, like rocks getting thrown at the propane tank from the woods. We were like, Wait, what is that noise?" And we would go towards where we would think the rocks were coming from with flashlights, and we never saw anybody. Nobody was there. And it was, 5 acres of woods. So we would hear somebody coming. if somebody was trying to creep around in there to scare some teenagers or something, and we didn't hear anything, just ding, the rocks hitting the driveway and the propane tank. So that would happen while I was outside, or just feeling really uncomfortable, like sick to my stomach uncomfortable. And that's become my clue of when something's around, whether it be good or bad or whatever it is. Whenever something's around, I feel like sick to my stomach, kind of like a weird feeling. And it's never let me down, honestly. Anytime I feel that, something usually happens.
We all kind of have some sort of trigger warning of when things are happening. Over time, as these incidents kept on rolling on through, did you learn what your triggers were? Did you learn the patterns that they were having in order to know that you were going to have contact?
Yeah, pretty much the stomach feeling, and then sometimes I would get lightheaded, and then I would always feel like something was right there, like right
Right.
by me and staring at me. Like if you walk in a room full of people naked or something, like you just feel like all eyes are on you. That was the feeling I would get.
Don't blame you. Don't blame you. You say you want to start getting your message out. This is something that is very new to you over the last number of months, where you've decided to go public with your story in order to try and help people not only understand that this phenomena is real, but that it's okay to talk about it. That's a pretty profound message that very few experiencers have. Most people just are like, hey, I found my community. This is what happened to me. And what do you think? But you are somebody who wants to take that into a different genre. Why is this important to you to reach out to other people who may be either too shy or too scared to tell their story?
Well, because I know what I went through and how tormenting it was and uncomfortable, and how I felt alone and isolated all the time. And it bothers me to think that somebody might be feeling that way, just like a lot of people that deal with like depression and suicidal thoughts. If you deal with that, you don't want others to feel that way, so you try to help when you can. So that's pretty much why I don't want anyone to feel like it's just their problem, or they're the only ones going through it, and that they can't talk about it, because there are people that do understand and won't belittle and judge. And it's especially becoming, I guess you could say, more mainstream nowadays. So I'm sure it's easier for people that weren't, I guess, my age growing up. If I said ghost, oh, you're crazy, and tinfoil hat and all that stuff, you get pointed at and laughed at. And nowadays it's not so crazy because of all the TV shows, and not the ET crafts being shown on like the news and all this congressional hearing stuff. So it's become a little bit more mainstream. So I hope that also helps people, because it's not fun feeling like you're isolated and alone and you're a crazy weirdo.
No, very, very true. But you know what? There are a lot of people out there, Jesse, who have one or two experiences, and they draw the line right there, and they don't have any UFO sightings. They don't have any cryptid sightings. They don't have anything outside of maybe a ghost walking through their hall one day, or maybe they see a UFO in the sky, and that's it. And when they look at somebody who is a multiple experiencer, they think you're doing it for chasing fame, chasing opportunities on podcasts and television shows, and maybe a book deal or whatever it may be that's blown up in their head, because there have been a lot of shysters over the years in this
Mhm.
field trying to make a quick buck and get out. I'm a fellow multiple experiencer, like you are, and I have experienced that as well on other shows that I've gone, when they're like, "Well, you've seen Bigfoot too?" Yeah. Well, you've had aliens? Yeah. You've had ghosts? Yeah. You know, uh, like, what haven't you seen? And they get to the point where they think you're making it up.
Mhm.
How do you combat that, considering this is your story? This is your tale. You didn't ask for this. You didn't want this, but it happened to you and you have to live with it. How do you combat that negativity, or the people who say, oh, that's impossible? None of that crap happens to just one person.
Honestly, I laugh and say, well, it's got to be nice living in a bubble.
I like that answer.
I honestly don't. I because of I guess how I was raised and who I am. Other people's opinions literally they don't matter to me. I do me. You can either take it or leave it, like it or not. If you don't like it, it's not my problem. If you think I'm making it up, then I'm sorry you feel that way, but I'm not going to let it stop me from what I'm doing and stop me from telling my stories and talking about it.
It's funny you say that because I got asked one day, I was telling a story about how me and my psychic friend, Samantha Mowat, who's a lifelong ET contactee as well, how we were walking through a forest one day and came across a 10 to 12 foot extraterrestrial standing there staring at us. And this guy just starts ripping me in the YouTube chat room. You did not see that. You're making this up. This is crap. No, that doesn't happen to anybody. And I'm like, I just started questioning him right in the chat room. Were you there? You know, do you know where Mission, British Columbia is? If so, could you tell me the street this happened on, the farmyard it happened on, where it happened? Because if you're there and you saw that it didn't happen, please tell me. Please tell
Yep.
me and confirm that my story is not real. So I started challenging him. All of a sudden, he got like really, oh, no, I didn't mean, you shouldn't have to take it like that. Well, no, how else are we as experiencers supposed to take it? You're the one chastising us. You're the one who wants the story. You're the one who wants to hear what is happening to people. We're trying to promote what happens to people. And then here you are bastardizing the entire story and
Mhm.
trying to take down my reputation on this. So good for you for standing up for yourself on that.
Thanks. Yeah, dealing with this type of stuff for so long, I guess I've got a very thick skin. Like even my podcast, I did like the Sierra sounds not too long ago, and somebody made a comment about it, like, oh, like, yeah, that was all fake, just so you know. I'm just like, okay, sorry you feel that way, but I don't feel that way, and that's my podcast and my topic. So
Oh, it drives me nuts. We got about 2 minutes before we have to go to our break here at the bottom of the hour.
okay.
Jessiy Hawthorne is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We're going to get really deep into your stories coming up because you have a bunch of stories to share.
Hmm.
Was it
Yeah, I'm
all paranormal
excited.
for you at first, or was it a mixture of everything kind of coming at you at once?
um it all seemed weird to me, I guess. I didn't understand it, and then when I realized I was the only one having weird stuff happen, I kind of was really like I didn't understand. Like, am I weird? Like, am I nuts? What's wrong with me? So I guess it was paranormal, but I didn't know there was a word for it. I just thought I was seeing different things than other people were, or that I something was wrong with my head. I don't know. Especially because I'd go to friends' houses and we'd just be talking, and I would bring up like something weird that happened. They're like, "What? That didn't happen."
So, out of everything you experienced, has it become like a drug to you that you're just sitting there waiting for the next fix to happen, the next
No,
paranormal experience?
no,
See,
yeah.
for me, it's different. Why not for you?
Um, well, I do ghost hunt, and I do. Oh, I don't want to call it that, but like I do. Stuff with like people like going to haunted locations and stuff, and I do CE5, so it's like I do kind of look for certain phenomenon in a way, but I want it to stay outside of my house, that's for sure. But like CE5 contact is one of my favorite things that I've done so far, and that I do enjoy having the paranormal experiences. I have not had a Bigfoot experience yet, but I would love to have that experience one day.
Oh, and you do. I'm going out in the forest this weekend to go see what
Nice.
happens. Jessiy Hawthorne is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. And when we return, we're going to get into some of her personal stories and and encounters with the unknown, like poltergeists and aliens. We'll be right back on the Mighty SOR. Stay tuned, everybody. All right, we are clear. All right. Now, we do have a bunch of your fans and listeners in our chat rooms.
Oh,
So
cool.
this is a message to all of you who are here watching Jessiy tonight. We are a hybrid of a live radio show combined with a live podcast and YouTube channel. So the reason why we have to take commercial breaks at the bottom and top of the hour are to time out for our radio stations. And so you get the behind the scenes look of what we do and what we talk about. The radio people don't. So if you're wondering, geez, why'd the conversation stop? Let's keep this going. Let's keep this podcast going. We're not a podcast. We base everything around our live radio stream, and then everything else is secondary. So I hope you enjoy. We are a little bit different. We are on the air 7 days a week. I know a bunch of you have subscribed already, so thank you. As I still have a frog in my throat. But we do appreciate you tuning us in. Even if it is your first time, welcome. You'll notice our chat room has really, really awesome and friendly people in there. We don't allow trolls. We don't allow negative comments or anything like that. I'm pretty strict with that. So enjoy yourself tonight. And hopefully after tonight, we get to see you again anytime Monday through Sunday. All right. That was your message for your friends.
Yeah, I've been promoting it a lot and telling people about it because honestly, like I found you from Jimmy Church. I even found Dave Schrader on Jimmy Church. I found a lot of people on there. So
Jimmy.
yeah, you and Jimmy are two people that I'm like bucket list guest appearances. So when you said yes, I was like, oh my God.
Jimmy just celebrated his 2000th show.
I know, that's so crazy.
Good for him. Best hair in the business next to mine. Okay. Now, I love Jimmy. You know, Jimmy has been, I don't know if Jimmy listens much to us or not. I know he listens time to time. But Jimmy and I have had some very cool private conversations about radio and the community and everything like that. And, you know, I know there's a lot of people out there who, you know, think negatively of me or think negatively of Jimmy or Dave Schrader. Don't care.
Yep.
Dave Schrader and Jimmy Church are two of the nicest guys in this field. When it comes to business, it's all business, but away from business, you know what? They're approachable. They're great people. And I've really enjoyed my conversations with them. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I met
You're
Dave
too. I have my toilet paper right here.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I actually, I don't know if I got allergies, and I'm 37 years old. Out of nowhere, like it's weird, but like this week I felt like crap.
This year. I'm sitting here with ear
in the air
and a plug in my ear and to keep the eardrops in, so that way it's not rolling down my face and my neck while it's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of cool. Uh-oh, she froze.
Yeah, it's been a rough week. Oh no. Can you hear me?
Oh, you're back.
Uh-oh. Okay.
We got
Yeah, it's weird, like the
good.
little thing on the bottom. Okay. I'm gonna say I'll tell my fiance to get off the internet.
Yeah. Hey, fiance, get off the internet. Radio show here.
I have told him he needs to update our modem and our internet since I'm doing weekly podcasts and stuff now. Like, come on. Killing my flow. Yeah, even though all the crazy shit I've been through, I try to keep a positive outlook on everything. Everything happens for a reason. I never thought that all that stuff would lead to what I'm doing today and how it's kind of become a passion instead of just a memory, I guess.
I think it's great. The more voices that we get out there and new voices telling their experiences, I think the better we all are off. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. and then listening to podcasts and radio shows and all these different people. Like I just listened to I can't remember his name, but he's on that ranch, Bershaw Ranch or something in Sedona with like the
Yeah.
dinosaur footprints. I was loving that one. I was like, oh my God,
Voodoo
this is so
Tall.
cool. Yeah.
He's a good dude. He's a good dude. All right, we have about 25 seconds left. Big thank you to Joe and Dragonfly for the super chats tonight. Very much appreciate the love and support. It's a good way to support what we do. Don't forget, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store on our website. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. You're going to want to wear our stuff out in public and be proud of it. And yeah, I do. And I know a bunch of people who do. Here we go. Go with the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. I love hearing personal stories of the unknown, and that's what we're into tonight. So sit back and get ready for it. Want to remind everybody before we come back, you can check out all of our archives for free on our YouTube channel or on any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Jessiy Hawthorne is a podcaster, researcher, CE5 experiencer. She's had a lifetime of strange occurrences, from poltergeist to ghosts, shadow people, even UFOs and aliens. We're going to get into some of those stories right now. Jessiy, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, let's rock and roll on your stories. So you told us about the shadow people that you saw when you were a child. Have those same shadow people followed you through adulthood?
They actually did for a little while. When I was 18, 19, I was dating my first fiance way back then, high school sweetheart type stuff. And he was living with us for a little while, and then we moved to his mom's house, and that house started getting weird activity, and I didn't really correlate it until I had an interview with Bill and Jackie for their book coming up, trauma and like the correlation between trauma and the paranormal. They asked me the same question, and it, like, I don't know where it rang a bell. I was like, oh my gosh, it did follow me. I forgot about that. So when we were living at his house, he had two siblings that lived there, both older than us. His older sister and his brother all lived upstairs, and we were on the main floor. And there were a few times where she would tell us that she would pull up into the driveway after work, and she would see a shadow person in her room. So she thought somebody broke into the house. So she would call the police, and nobody was in the house. Or this one time, his older brother was walking down the stairs, and he saw a person in the living room just staring off into space. So he went upstairs and grabbed his bat, and when he came back down, nobody was there. So a lot of stuff like that happened while we lived there, and then we would have stuff just disappear or get moved or something. And then there were times where I would feel watched a lot, like I did at the old house, that sick to my stomach feeling. And then we moved out and went in. We got like our own little apartment, and I don't believe it followed us there. I don't think it did, but it definitely did it when we were living with his mom for a little while. So he actually experienced a lot of the stuff that I did, and it was kind of a relief that somebody else was experiencing the same stuff that I was. And I actually was talking to him after I interviewed with Jackie and Bill, and he gave me this list of stuff. Do you remember when this happened, or when this happened, or when this happened? And I was like, wow, there's some stuff I forgot about. And you just validated everything that I said to them too. So that was interesting.
Oh, I bet. I bet. What do these shadow people look like?
So most of the ones that I saw were really tall, like 8 to 10 feet tall, and a couple had like glowing red eyes, but there were 2 or 3 times where they had like a whitish blue hue to their eyes. So I'm gonna say his name. He already told me it was okay. So Bobby was my fiance at the time. Him and I were watching my mom's boyfriend's house, who was down the road, and they were in like Wisconsin or something for fishing. And so we were driving down the road, coming back to the house because we actually got freaked out at his house. The toilet was flushing over and over again randomly. One of the bedroom doors slammed, and then lights were going on and off. So now that I think about it, I think they followed us there to get us back to go home, to get us back home. So we freaked out, left, went back to my house, and he stops the car, and I was like, "Well, what's the matter?" And he's like, "I think I just saw something in the street." So we drove up a little bit, drove past the driveway, and we were looking into the woods, and we saw this black mass shape, I guess a shadow person, really tall, hunched over, and we watched its head turn and look at us, and its eyes were like a bluish white color. So, needless to say, he slammed on the gas and we drove around for like 2 hours because we didn't want to go home. It was freaky, and that memory is still very vivid in my mind.
I bet. I bet. At any time did you feel threatened by this creature or these creatures?
Yeah. Ugh, it's still a little uncomfortable to talk about, but I I guess you could say it was kind of like a possession once. So when I was 14, I realized that my dad passed in the driveway and not at the hospital, like I thought. So I got a pendulum board and I went out to the driveway and I thought that I was talking to my dad. And I don't think I was talking to my dad because after that, things got really violent in the house. I would have stuff thrown at me. My necklaces would get pulled off of me. And then this one time, I don't, a lot of young people probably don't remember this, but you could do like a three-way call on on a phone that had buttons on it. So I was on a three-way call with my best friend and my boyfriend at the time. I think I was 15, and I remember talking to them, and then I woke up outside sitting on the bench with one of the machetes next to me. I don't remember going outside. I have no memory of that. And I went back inside in the house, and both of them were like screaming my name, and they were like, "Are you okay? What's happening? What's going on?" And they were freaking out. And I was like, "Hey guys, I was outside. Do you know why I went outside?" And they said that I was talking about different ways how to kill myself. I have no memory of that. And that was the only time that that happened. But there were other times where I felt a lot of hatred and anger that didn't make any sense. Like, why am I this mad? Why do I hate this person so much? This doesn't make any sense. So I think it was attached to me, and it did try to mess with me in that way because after I was about 14, I started cutting to deal with all of the emotions that I was going through because the physical pain was better than the emotional pain, I guess, if that makes any sense. So I did feel threatened.
How did it change you compared to, say, how you wanted to be with your friends and family?
I was not a nice person a lot of the time. If I didn't get my way, I got violent. I would threaten to harm myself all the time. I hate that I was like that, but I know now that it wasn't really my fault. Um, I'm adopted. My mom got me when I was 8 weeks old, so she's my mom. And I don't remember what we were arguing about, but I remember we were arguing, and I told her that I wish that my real mother got an abortion so she wouldn't have adopted me. And I hate that I said that nowadays, but back then, like that's how angry I was all the time. I don't know why I was so angry all the time. I hated it. So I know it damaged a lot of relationships when I was younger, but luckily I still do have some friends now, and they've told me how like it was like a switch. Like I would be perfectly fine and normal, and then like something would happen and it wouldn't be how I wanted it to happen, or I would get into a fight with the person I was dating or something, and then I would just switch and be a completely different person. I was just very mean, and um, there were times where I threatened to like harm myself. So yeah.
I'm glad you didn't, because the way the spiritual activity, if you're dealing with the darker side of everything, the way it can make you spin out of control without you even knowing it, without knowing that it's causing you angst or depression or anger or violence. I mean, people think, geez, well, what's Jessie's problem? Why
Hmm.
why is she like this? But in the meantime, did you feel you had any attachments or anything dark that was living inside of you while you were going through this?
Um, I mean, there were times where I questioned it, like it didn't, like, why am I so mad? I don't understand, but I didn't know what attachments were. I didn't know that this could happen, like paranormal stuff like that could happen. I thought like it was all outside, like outside of myself. I didn't know that it could do that to me until I started doing like research, and then reading books, because we didn't really have TV. We I grew up in the country, so we had like, some channels, like we watched the X-Files, but that's not really like today. There's all these different paranormal shows, and you can watch this happen to people. And that was another thing that kind of made me rethink my life. Like, oh my God, this is what happened to me. That makes it sucks, but it makes total sense now. Now I understand why I acted that way and why I was so horrible to some people. It wasn't actually me, because after a few years of being away from the house, it, I'm a completely different person. After the house, ironically, it got foreclosed on, and in 2012, and the people that bought it, they started redoing it, and it's been abandoned for a decade. Nobody's lived there. So I'm wondering if something's going on there or what, because it's kind of weird how somebody bought it. They made it a two-story. There's no siding on it. There's no walls in there. They didn't finish the house, like redoing it, and it's been sitting like that for 10 years. Like I have there's a Facebook group I'm a part of from that town, and somebody actually posted a picture of it and said, "Does anybody know what's going on with this house? It's been sitting vacant for a decade." And I'm like, "Oh my God, that's my house. It's still vacant. Holy cow."
It's funny because I am actually looking for that exact house here in my little part of the woods in British Columbia, because I want to turn it into a haunted bed and breakfast. And I was talking to a realtor friend of mine in town, and apparently there's this house, about 8 miles away, that nobody's lived in for 2.5 years. And the minute the realtors go to show it, for some reason, the bottom floor spooks everybody out. They feel there is this giant presence there. But the only problem is, I want some acreage for that. I want to be able to build around it. I want a place for the aliens, so I can build a pad, and say, aliens welcome here, but I understand with where you're going with that. What I don't understand is, out of all the experiences I've had, I've never seen, and I don't know if I want to, poltergeist activity. I mean, you've seen things moving across the floor, being thrown at you, everything. What is that like when all of a sudden, say you're watching TV or you're making yourself a peanut butter and jam sandwich, and all of a sudden a cup goes flying across the room or a magazine hits the floor?
For a while, it was like really terrifying, because I would try to debunk it first. Like, okay, what could have caused that? Like, oh, the cup fell off the counter. It's probably wet counter or something. I would try to explain it away, but then there were times where um stuff would get like launched on my dresser. Like I had a like little votive tea light candles and stuff. They would just go floop, fly off the dresser, like at a distance and at a speed. It wasn't just like it fell off or something like that. And it scared the crap out of me for a while. And then there were times where I was just like, okay, could you stop? Like, I'm doing my homework right now. This is annoying.
So, what was your first encounter with a poltergeist?
um, well, I didn't see this, but obviously stuff got moved. My best friend and I, we played with American Girl dolls when we were kids. I think we were 8 or 9. I can't remember how old we were, but we were playing American Girl dolls and they were in school. So we had little pencils and paper and stuff for them. And we went in the kitchen to have lunch and we went back in the bedroom and there were pencil marks all over the white closet, about as tall as a doll, and the dolls were on the bed. I I don't know what that was. It was me, her, and my mom in the house. Nobody else was home, and we were all in the kitchen eating the peanut butter and jam sandwiches. And we go back in the bedroom, and we see these pencil marks all over the closet, and the dolls are not in the desk; they're on the bed. And now I have a fear of dolls to this day.
I don't blame
So,
you.
so
I
that was
really
one of the first
don't.
times something moved, I guess you could say. I didn't see that, but that was the first time it happened. And then the first one that I remember was probably I don't know, 15, 15 or 16. And I was in my bedroom listening to music, and I saw one of my I believe it was a candle, actually, a votive candle, just zip off, like get pushed off the dresser. Like, when a cat bats at something and then it falls, that's pretty much what it looked like. It looked like something batted the votive candle and then it fell on the floor. So I was just like, what the hell? How why did that happen and how did that happen? And then I just picked it up and put it back on the dresser. I didn't really think much of it. And then little stuff like that would happen again. Or I've had necklaces get like taken off of my neck before, where I'm just standing somewhere and then my necklace just breaks and falls. That didn't make any sense either.
Weird. Weird. See, I've never had that happen. I mean, when it's happening to you in real time, what goes through your mind when you see something like that? Is it at first like an unbelievable feeling like, did I just see that? Or are you
hmm
like, oh no, I don't need this today?
Usually it actually is like whoa, did that just happen? And then like you question it for a minute or two, like, did I just see that? Did that just happen? And then I've just become so used to it. I'm just like, okay, and I go on with my day. Like it was actually just a couple weeks ago. Um I mean, I know there's stuff everywhere and I know how to handle it nowadays. I might have actually brought something home from a ghost investigation, I think is what happened. Because I was doing dishes in the kitchen and we had bananas that were kind of upside down on the toaster, like laying over the toaster. And I just got the feeling to look behind me. So I looked behind me and I saw them get flipped off the toaster and they fell on the counter. I was just like, what the heck? And I told babe, I'm like, babe, did you see that? He's like, see what? I'm like, the bananas, they just got flipped off the toaster. He goes, no, but I heard it. And I was just like, okay, that was interesting. And I just kept washing the dishes. And needless to say, I saged after that.
Okay. I got to ask you, what's your fiance's name?
His name's Steve.
What does Steve think with you bringing in all this woo around you? He probably lived a happy, boring life before this. Now you bring in all this woo, and he's sitting here having to deal with it now. Poltergeists in the house and aliens coming through the walls. What does he ever think and sit with you over maybe a chai latte? Because you look like those kind of people. Okay, having that chai latte and saying, "What the hell did you get me into here?"
What's funny is I always call him a muggle, but he actually he's still a skeptic. He won't believe me for like there's still stuff he's like, I don't know, babe, but he doesn't think that I'm crazy. He knows that I experienced something, but he didn't. He actually and I'll tell you really quick about our Massachusetts trip. He literally told me this back in late October when we were there. I think I just had my first full-blown paranormal experience because he's always tried to explain everything away that's happened. So we were in the Bridgewater Triangle in the Hockomock Swamp, and I wanted to check the area out, and we started walking, and I got that horrible feeling in my stomach, and I was just trying to
Well,
ignore it. Yeah, I was trying to ignore it. Like, nope, we're in Massachusetts. We're having a good day. Everything's cool. And after about 15 minutes, I couldn't take it anymore. I was like, okay, babe, I'm getting one of my feelings. I don't feel good. I don't know. I don't feel right. Something's not right. And he's like, okay, well, let's just keep going. So we kept walking, and he looked at me. He's like, do you got that like EMF thingy in your bag? I was like, actually, yeah, I do. So I have a K2 meter, and I took it out, and I was asking questions, and nothing happened. But then I gave it to him, and it went to red, and it kept doing that. Well, he had it, but it just ignored me. And so we're walking, and it would turn to red, and he'd like look down and look at me. I'm just like, I don't know. Why don't you ask questions? So he started asking questions, and it would respond to him. And after a little bit, he was just like, okay, yeah, let's turn around. So we started walking back, and I felt like he wasn't behind me anymore. So I turn around, and he's like 50 to 100 feet behind me. And I was like, babe, what are you doing? Let's go. And he was looking the opposite direction, and he jumped, turned around, and was like, okay, no, we're going, let's go, let's go. And I'm like, don't tell me until we get to the car, because I knew something happened. And we get to the car, and I have us rub our feet in black salt because that's something I feel gets negative stuff away if you have it attached to you. Is rubbing my feet in black salt. It always seems to work. So he willingly did that. And then we got in the car, and he looked at me. He said, I think I just had my first full-blown paranormal experience. And I was like, oh yeah, what happened? What do you think happened? So he said that there were a few times where we stopped, and he heard something next to us. So it was fall, so there were the leaves all everywhere. He heard something like shift next to us, and the EMF detector went off. And that happened, I guess, 3 times. And he said that when he jumped was because he just got like he had this feeling he wanted to turn around. He didn't know why, because he wanted to leave, but he wanted to turn around and go the opposite way, go back into the forest. And he said that he stopped, and that he heard something run at him, and then the K2 meter went to red. So that's why he jumped and was like, nope, we're going. We're getting out of here. So I was like, really? That happened? And he was like, I don't know what that was. I can't debunk it. I can't explain it. I know what I heard, and I know what I saw. And I think because he heard something and saw equipment react to what he heard, that's what made him feel that it was a full-blown paranormal experience. So
well, it's about time he's opening up.
Mhm.
Sweet Stevie there, opening up his eyes, to the experiencing the woo. I got a buddy like that. He's in our chat room, little Marky Spender. He'll be my guest next week. I'm bringing him
Oh,
on
cool.
because he is so skeptical of everything. It's taken him a year and a half to finally admit that we saw Bigfoot together in the forest. You know, and yeah, I finally got it out of him a few weeks ago. I'm like, man, why can't you just admit we had some Bigfoot? Okay. And he's like, yeah. He goes, I don't want to. Because there's comfort in that skepticism. You know what I'm saying? There's
Yep.
comfort. Jesse, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because
Okay.
we are going to go to break here at the top of the hour. Hard to believe we're already through 1 hour here on Spaced Out Radio. Jessiy Hawthorne explaining her experiences. We're going to get into her ET contact. next on the Mighty SOR. Stay tuned, everybody. You're in for a great show tonight. We'll be right back on Spaced Out. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. All right, we are clear.
Okay.
Very cool. Very cool.
My nose.
All right. We got about 5.5 minutes.
Okay.
I'm just going to take a quick break. I'm going to put you back in the green room.
Okay.
We'll be right back, okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Don't go anywhere, anybody. Jessie's coming back for hour 2 next. Be right there. All right, I am back. We'll bring Jessie back in. Travis, how you doing, buddy? Welcome. Who else has joined us late here? Blue Cruz, nice to see you. And who else we got here? Aaron Baca, good to have you here. We're all caught up. I got some questions loaded up already. So, you having fun, Jess?
Yeah, I'm having a great time actually. I just saw somebody comment in the YouTube chat about maybe I'm having all these experiences. It gets attracted to all the titanium in my body. So
Maybe.
never thought about that.
JBD, how you doing? Good to see you. Yeah, I love these types of shows. These are my favorite types of shows to do, is the personal experiences with everything. Hi, Forrest Louie. How you doing, buddy? Oh, wow. Travis, thank you. Says, hi, Dave. When are you going to buy Bug Wars Ultimate War Machines? I put a character in there for you. I'm going to go. Is it on Amazon, Travis? Because I'll go get it. All right. Thank you tonight to T-Bone, Dragonfly, and Joe for the super chats. And don't forget, you can shop at our store and our website. We do not have ugly swag, people. Wear it in public proudly. Here we go. We're already into hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. The experiences of a lifetime with Jessiy Hawthorne, our guest. And if you missed hour number 1, you're going to want to check it out on our archives. Hi, everybody. My name is Dave Scott. I am the host with the most tinfoil wrapped around me at all times. You can't see it because you're listening on the radio, but trust me, it's there. I promise. Want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally, all around the world, on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Sticking with the Space Travelers Club, the Desert Clam has set the password for tonight. It is what the hell is this? Hold on. Resistentialism. Say that 3 times. Resistentialism is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. And if you're wondering what the password is for, exactly. That's the answer. Jessiy Hawthorne is here. She's got some poltergeist activity, shadow people, paranormal. Now we're going to get to your aliens, because you got some aliens.
Yeah. Sorry, you broke up for a second there. What was the question?
When did the aliens show up?
Well, the first experience that I can remember was when I was like 5, and I was in the backyard where there was like a creek in the back, and I saw the top part of a head of, I think it was a gray, now that I know more about that stuff, and it was like moving back and forth in the bushes. And then I don't have a recollection of what happened after that. I think I ran into the house. I just remember being scared. And then from what my mom says, I wouldn't go into that yard alone. I always had to have someone with me after that.
So you see this alien gray. Did you have missing time after that?
I honestly don't know. I just remember seeing it and then being really scared. And I think I ran into the house, but again, I don't have recollection, so I might have had some memories erased. I need to be hypnotized in order to get those back, possibly. But that was my first, I guess you could say, interaction with something not, I guess, very different, like the shadow people and the stuff in the woods and everything. That's different, but this was more different, if that makes any sense.
And did they keep coming back?
I haven't seen one in person again since then, but I've seen lots and lots of like UFOs. I'm not calling them UAPs; they're UFOs to me.
Thank you. Thank you. I love you for that.
So
And just
since
time right there. I
yeah.
I hate that term UAP. My audience already knows this. If they listen every night, they know my loathing of the term UAP because I think it's insultive to all of us who've had a UFO experience. I really
Exactly. That's exactly how I feel about that too. So I'm gonna say UFO. I don't care what you guys call it now. It's UFO. So I've seen a lot of UFOs actually since we lived in the country. That was one of the things to do, skywatch, and you would see stuff that it didn't make any sense. We don't have technology like that where it would be going one way, it would stop, and then it would sit there for a minute, and then it would zip past the opposite way, or it would go crazy different directions like figure eights or do a 90-degree turn and not reduce speed whatsoever. Um, so I saw a lot of that growing up because like the cool thing to do was like when I had friends over, we'd walk across the street in the golf course, lay some blankets down and just sky watch for a few hours. So I did that a lot while I was growing up. So I got a lot of I guess you could say I've seen a lot of stuff in the sky. So I know what a satellite is, I know what a airplane is, I know what debris looks like all of that. I've been watching the sky since I was a kid. So I know what all that stuff looks like and I know what should I guess is different, should not be up there. Um one of my one of the coolest experiences that I've had when I saw like a UFO craft was my very first CE5 back in May of 2021. um we had I don't know if anyone's seen the Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind film, but there was a man in there named Ed Moen. He had his hearing healed by a mantis being. He was there. He actually lives in Wisconsin, which is not far from where I live, so he was able to come to the CE5, and we've become friends and stuff since then. So we were all just in our circle, we did the meditation and everything, and we were seeing lots of crazy stuff like far away in the sky, and then we saw a few orbs pop up around us, and I remember thinking it would be so cool if you appeared like right over those trees over there, because there were trees like maybe a mile down the way in the field, because where we were doing the CE5s was middle of nowhere, fields all around us. So it's not like there were cars in the distance or street lights. It was in the country. And I guess a couple seconds after I thought that, this huge, like, it wasn't really saucer shaped because it kind of pointed. It was kind of like this. It shot out of the trees. Like, so
oh
it
wow.
was over there or something, and it zipped out of the trees. It was like this golden golden light. I can't really explain it. It was crazy color. I can't explain. It was like this gold, orangish yellow hue, and you could see the shape and see the light like go as a trail, like when you see a comet. So like it shot up and disappeared. I didn't see it shoot up and go way up in the sky. I saw it shoot out of the trees and disappear, like blip out of existence. And that was a half a mile away from me. That was by those trees, which are maybe 50 feet off the ground. Holy cow.
No kidding. No kidding. I mean, to have a close encounter like that, do you believe that it was meant for you to see it? That it was wanting to communicate with you? Because so many times when I've seen UFOs, I'll be standing on my patio. I'll go out after the show, and I'm lucky enough to have a radio studio in my house. And so when I'm done the show, I'll go outside. It doesn't matter whether it's minus 20 degrees Celsius in the middle of winter or whether it's, one of those warm evenings where you can just sit out and enjoy the warm weather. And I'll just stare up at the sky.
Hmm.
And it just seems like there's so much up there going on with satellites and planets and stars. but then you get something that's all of a sudden flashing at you. Then you
Mm-hmm.
ask, can you flash again for me? And it does it. And
Yep.
then it does it again. And it's like there's these hidden messages that we just can't translate
Mm-hmm.
into what's going on, but they're for you. They're supposed to mean something. Have you ever been able to figure out what that meaning for you is?
Well, I know a lot of it was to, I guess you could say, wake me up. Like, hey, hi, we're here. Yes, we exist. Because ever since I started having those experiences, I became a lot more spiritual, I guess. I'm a very spiritual person. I'm a Reiki master. So I do energy healing and sound healing. I believe that vibration and light can heal the body instead of pills. um and I've been healed by them once. So I think I was getting, I guess you could say, downloads. This one person I met at an expo last Saturday said data dump, which I like that term. So I think I was getting a data dump because it wasn't long after I saw that UFO that close. I just had the worst headaches, like around, like, I guess you could say, my forehead by the third eye, as well as the crown of my head, just these throbbing headaches, and like I was really really cold and I couldn't explain it. It made no sense. I was taking Excedrin migraine and I was doing Reiki on myself and nothing was helping. And the my one friend who used to lead the CE5 group, he was like, well, maybe it's them. Have you asked them to like ease up a little bit for you? They could be giving you a download. And I'm like, never thought about that. Okay. So I was just like sitting there on the couch. I'm like, okay, guys, if you are causing this, could you please ease up a little bit? I can't function right now. Like all the lights are off. I can't see anything. My vision's blurry. Any type of sound is hurting my head. Like, could you please ease up a little bit? And then I felt this warmth go over my whole body. So I wasn't cold anymore. And then I felt everything like tickled. Like I got this electricity, static, tickly feeling all over my body. And then I felt like this overwhelming sense of like love, I guess. It's hard to explain it, like a hug from the universe type of feeling. And then my headache went away. And was like in euphoric bliss for like 2 hours after that. So I can't explain that. I asked for them to ease up a little bit, and then I had all this interesting things happen to me. I felt this warm feeling go over me, this euphoric, like bliss feeling, and I was really happy and in a good mood. I felt loved, and my headache went away. Like, I can't rationally explain that.
Man, man. I mean, I've heard of things like that happening. How they happen, why they happen. I have no idea. But how many UFOs do you think you've seen through it all?
Um, well, the one was the closest. I haven't seen one that close since then. Oh, goodness. Probably a couple hundred. I even saw some a couple of weeks ago when I was with Chris Fleming at the Tinker Swiss Cottage. Um, we ended up seeing this light in the sky that it was flashing, but it wasn't flashing like a plane would flash. It was too fast or too slow. I can't remember which right now. Um, and then another one started coming from the opposite direction and they almost hit each other. And I did get that on camera. I have a Psionics Aurora Pro camera I got a couple years ago. It definitely has good night vision. And when I was going over the footage, I realized I captured, I guess you could say, an accidental UFO because I was filming just the sky and I was watching the footage and then this little bright white light was moving and then it's almost like it realized that I was filming it and it stopped. It just stopped right there and it's like, hey, I'm a star. I don't exist. And another funny instance was in 2022 after I took over the CE5 group, so now I lead them. This was when I was, or was it? No, it was 2021 because I was still smoking cigarettes. I've been nicotine free for like over 2 years now. I was outside on the porch having a cigarette, and I saw this bright white light across the street, and I was just like, huh, okay. And I checked like all the apps I have. I'm like, well, you're not a star, you're not a planet, you're not blinking, so you're not a plane, you're not moving. And I thought in my head, okay, are you an ET being? Like, hi, what's up, star family? And then it got really, really bright. I call them power ups. So it did a power up for me. And I got so excited. I was like, hi, thank you for that. How, like, could you do that again for me? And it did it again. I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. And then my fiance came outside to have a cigarette, and then it started blinking like a plane. I was like, babe, there's a UFO right there. He's like, no, that's a plane, babe. I'm like, it's a freaking UFO. It was just communicating with me. You came outside, and now it looks like a plane. So then it kept blinking, and then it just drifted off like it was a plane. That was one of the coolest things I've ever seen, even though I was like, really? You're going to make me look like I'm nuts?
Horrible. Horrible. Yeah. You don't want to be looking like you're nuts, but sometimes I think these UFOs though, when they come around, they are specifically coming around to give you something. I remember we were out in the forest at our Sasquatch spot a couple of years ago now. And I could tell you that we were sitting there watching this area, just waiting for something to happen. And all of a sudden this one bright dot appears. And then the next two to make the triangle. The second I went and pulled out my camera from my pocket, I got my phone out about 2 inches. And I'm like, I'm actually going to do what I literally say I'm never going to do. I'm going to try and take a picture of this. And the minute I started to pull my camera out, boom, bottom 2 lights went off. And then the top faded out. It was
Yep.
like, not this time, idiot. You're not doing that. You know, little show. This is for you and your buddies around you. But if you're going to get all techie on us, we're out of here. And it disappeared. You know?
Yep.
And it makes me wonder sometimes. It humbled me.
Oh, that's too funny. It's just like crazy that they know what you're doing. So it's like there's got to be like something like telepathy or something going on, because it's like, how do you're way up there. How do you know I'm taking my camera out? Because that's happened to me a few times too, where I'm like, oh my God, I got to get a picture of this or get a video of this. And then they like disappear, shoot off, or they look like they're a plane.
What do you say to people who want that experience? They want to be able to have that experience, and even if it's just fleeting, even if it's once, how do you help them?
Well, if anybody wants to come to my CE5, it's one of the first things that I tell them, or I guess you could say I ask them, is so if we were hanging out and you saw an ET pop its head around the corner and look at you, what would your first reaction be? And a lot of people, obviously, they say, I would be freaked out. I would be terrified. Some people automatically, like, I would be like, hi, and I start asking questions. And that's one thing that I tell a lot of people is you can't have fear, because you can feel fear. If there's an argument in a room and you walk in, you can feel that tension. Do you want to be around somebody that is terrified of you and might run and freak out or something? No, I wouldn't. So I always tell people, like, don't have fear, and you might actually have an experience. So I'll bring this up, well, where that revelation came from. In 2021, early 2021, I would have dreams a lot of ETs in my bedroom and stuff. So I don't know if it's actually happened in real life or not, but I would have a lot of quote dreams where they would come into my bedroom and I would start screaming and I'd be terrified and freaking out. Well, this one night, I still remember it really vividly. I woke, quote, I was sleeping in my bed and I opened my eyes and I saw this. It was actually pretty tall, like 6 foot tall, gray peek its head around into the bedroom, and it smiled at me, and I started screaming, and then I ran and I started hitting it, and all it did was smile at me. And I woke up and was like, what it was that? And then I watched Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. 2 weeks after I watched that film, I had the same quote dream with the same being came in, poked its head around the corner and looked in my bedroom and smiled at me. And I felt like the fear at first, but I was able to push it away. And then it smiled, waved, and disappeared. I don't know if that was real, or if it was a dream or what it was, but I thought that was really interesting how I had a dream of it. I got freaked out and I was hitting it, and it didn't try to hurt me at all. It just sat there and smiled at me while I was hitting it. And then I watched this film. 2 weeks later, I have the same being pop into my dream, and I don't get scared, and then it just disappears. Like, what does that mean? Like, I think the meaning was like, well, you see, now I'm not going to hurt you. So now that you don't have fear, we're more open to showing ourselves. I think that's what it was for. Or maybe it awakened me to more stuff. I don't know. But I just found that interesting that happened. And then I started doing CE5s after that.
How is the CE5 gone for you?
Pretty good. I have a decent amount of people that want to join and everything. I do keep the group kind of relatively small, and I make sure, I guess you could say, I screen everybody. I talk to them for like a month or two before I say, yes, you can come to an event. Because cohesion is the most important part, in my opinion. So I want to make sure everybody's going to get along, and there's going to be happiness and love vibration, no negative, pessimistic, cynical people. And also because we use my shaman teacher's property. So we're using the property of somebody that I know. So she trusts me to have people on her property. So I want to make sure that I know the people that I bring there. I've had my one friend, I call him my techie guy. He's my tech guy. He has all the equipment to know when there's space debris, when there's planes or satellites or whatever. So if we see something, he checks all of that. He's actually got opened up a lot to a lot of the stuff that we've been doing, and we've had some really interesting experiences. We've even had the land spirits play with us. Like, we'll see orbs, or we'll hear drumming out of nowhere when it's in the middle of a field. Like, why are we hearing drumming out of nowhere? Our equipment will go crazy. And then there's times where we use like lasers to communicate, and what we see will blink twice when we blink our lasers twice, or something like that. Or there was another time where I was actually, I don't know why, I felt like I needed to sit by where I could see Arcturus. And I turned around behind me and I saw this blue, whitish light, very bright, just kind of cruising. And I looked at my one friend. I'm like, oh my God, look. I think there's a UFO up there. And he was like, oh wow. And then it just like disappeared. And he was like, I think that was meant for you. I'm like, yeah, I think it was too. Because it was right by Arcturus, right by the star Arcturus, where I wanted to look what I wanted to look at. So I thought that was weird and interesting.
We've got about 40 seconds to go before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour. Jessiy Hawthorne, we have her till the top of the hour here on Spaced Out Radio. When we return, we're going to get to some audience questions for Jessiy, because we always like to include the audience in here. And we're having a great show on this. This is what it's all about for me, is the personal experience that people have. The personal experiences that people are encountering on a daily basis. And it doesn't matter whether it's paranormal. It doesn't matter whether it's cryptids, fairies flying through, the garden, gnomes running around. It's all reality in a different world. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you for tuning us in tonight.
listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
Okay, a couple things I need to address in the chat room. First and foremost, soccer is not a sport, okay? It is not a sport. That's why we call it the beautiful game. All right? I feel sorry. I drive by the through my town and I see the kids wearing their soccer jerseys and I cry for them. I literally cry for them knowing that their parents hate them. Okay? Basketball, it would be a great game if they could play a full 15-minute quarter like real professional sports. And I'm saying this because my weekend host, Sweet Robbie G, is beating the hell out of me in the chat room right now over this. Okay. Yeah. He's like, I don't like that hockey stuff. You try skating at 30 miles an hour on thin blades, on ice, while getting rocked by people. And sometimes you have to bare knuckle fight. You know, it's not like basketball where their arms are so long. The fight has somebody at half court and the other one underneath the net, and they're trying to punch each other. I don't mind basketball, though. I'm just giving them a shot, though. I don't mind that. But soccer, I loathe. Soccer ranks up there with UAP and squatch.
Squatching.
I hate that term, too. Not everybody loses teeth, Christine. Some of us only lose half a tooth. Some of us develop sleep apnea because our nose can't be fixed. Not like I know anybody like that. Mm-hmm. And then there's baseball. I love baseball. Love baseball. I hate this new pitcher's rule, though. I hate it. I think it takes away from the game. Stu effing Gerson, how you doing? Heavy on the effing. What's happening? Oh, the Oilers have to win. We have no choice. We have no choice. Go Yankees. Rugged Source, how you doing? No, Rugged Source, that's soccer where you can take a nap and nothing happens. Hard to watch a blowout game when they're announcing a blowout game of 1-0 or 1-0. Yeah. Put it in the old onion bag. Terrible. See, I used to work in sports radio, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hockey's the only sport that I can actually watch and kind of pay attention to, even though I lose the puck every now and then.
Laura Lee Seaton, you better be in Europe right now if you're eating an omelet. Shouldn't be doing that breakfast for dinner stuff. Do you eat breakfast for dinner?
This has gone so fast.
Jesse?
Yep.
Do you eat breakfast foods for dinner?
Not usually, no, unless I put bacon in the mac and cheese or something.
Well, bacon is universal. So that's okay. I'm glad to hear that. You're one of the normal ones out there. Not like half the audience who says, Dave, you should have some eggs and pancakes for dinner sometime. That's breakfast food. Breakfast food. Sweet Robbie G, you guys got me all fired up right now. I just want to talk sports now. This is all your fault. All your fault, Redbeard. Mm-hmm. All right, we got about 45 seconds.
Okay.
Having fun?
Yeah, actually, it's gone by so fast.
Right.
And
All
like I've
right.
barely touched the surface.
Right. All right. Badass Billy Gunn. He's an ass man. Back in the chat room. Thank you to T-Bone ×2, Dragonfly, and Cosmic Joe for our great super chats tonight. Very much appreciate the love. Hi, Penny Van. And don't forget Sweet Robbie G, Saturday and Sunday night right here, starting at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern for After Hours. Damn, he's good. There's my ad for him. Damn, he's good. Sweet Robbie G. Here we go. Second half of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you for joining us. My name is Dave Scott. We always appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hey, I want to remind all of you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, did you know our archives are always free? YouTube, you can check us out there. You can see my nasty face for radio on there, by the way, and my luscious beard. Also, on any major podcast network, if you want to download it, it's always free as well. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Let us say hello one final time to Jessiy Hawthorne, a life of experiences from paranormal, supernatural, to UFOs and aliens. We're going to get to some audience questions, Jessiy, and thank you so much once again for being here with us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure's mine.
All right, let's follow through with another great question from our audience. Start off with Polly. Do the shadow people and aliens come from the same realm or dimension? And if not, where do you see the difference?
That's a good question. Honestly, I think they could be just different dimensions, and maybe our eyes see the shadow people because we can't actually see what's actually there. That's a possibility, and I'm definitely open to that. I know a lot of people think that ET beings are actually like ultra terrestrials or different dimensions or parallel universe. I guess we'll never know until we actually talk to one, possibly, or they come out and say, "Hey, just so you know, we're actually from this area." I don't think shadow people can talk. I don't know. I've never heard one talk.
All right, let's move on to a new question. Let's go to Android. What age were you when you got the rods in your back? Did your experiences start or increase after that?
I was 11 when I got the first one, and then I was 18 when I got the other two because my back curved more. Obviously, when you're 11, you're not fully grown. I had experiences before my first surgery, and then before the second surgery, and then after the second surgery, things actually calmed down a little bit, but not. I still had the attachment, and I realize that now. And then I didn't really have any experiences for a few years, and then I guess you could say I turned my abilities back on, and then started researching more and understanding the phenomenon instead of just being freaked out by it and not wanting to really think about it. I figured out of sight, out of mind, and I kind of pushed that away, and now I'm full blown deep in swimming in it, and nothing's happened. So nothing that I'm not okay with, I guess you could say.
Let's go back to Polly. What is it that these entities are looking for, in your opinion, and how do they choose their victims?
Well, I think I got picked on because our house was on an Indian burial ground. And from what I understand, there's like watchers there, and they don't want people living there. And then the fact that I have abilities probably made me a light bulb, so they could interact with me, and they saw that they were getting reactions out of me. So there were times where I kind of felt tormented, growing up. So I think if you have abilities, you are seen more, or I don't know. I think they know if you have abilities or not. Like, oh, they can see me, or oh, they can hear me. And it just, I guess, depends on what it is that notices that you can notice them if they feel that you're going to be like a victim or not. I know there that the stuff that I grew up with definitely enjoyed me being freaked out by them all the time. And you could, I don't know, it's hard to explain. Like, I knew that they were enjoying tormenting me when I was younger.
Let's do a second one from Polly. If you feel a presence in your house, what's your best advice on what to do? Leave it alone or call someone?
Well, I don't have to call anybody because I do know what to do. So if I feel like something is negative here, what I do is I burn sage or Palo Santo or both, and I pretty much cleanse the house. I go from north and I go clockwise all the way back to that same section. I keep all the windows closed and I open up every cabinet, closet, or anything in the house so the sage smoke can get into all the crevices. And I pretty much say nothing that like negative, and no negative energies are allowed in this living space. Only positive beings of love, light, and happiness is allowed in this living space. Anything negative must leave. You're not allowed. And I say that while I go around the house, and then I put Reiki into all the walls and put a little bubble up, wait a half hour, and then I open one of the windows so all the stuff can get released. So that's what I do if I ever feel anything in the house. There's been times actually where Steve has said, babe, when was the last time that you saged? I'll be like, I don't know, a couple months. Why? I don't know. I don't feel right. Can you sage the house? I'm like, okay. So I'll sage for him.
Oh, geez. Yeah. We had the sage going around my place the other day. All right. Let's go to Castle Dude, the lover of soccer. Poor guy. Feel bad for him. Have you ever had encounters with fairies or other members of the Fae?
I think I have. I remember seeing like winged. They were glowing. It was like a tiny little figure with wings, and it was glowing. I got that in a couple pictures way back in the 90s when like digital cameras first came out. And then last year I went up to Burlington Woods in Wisconsin, which is a very well-known area for Fae and Bigfoot. And this one woman we were with, fairies are attracted to her. So she got a couple pictures of kind of the same thing that I did when I was growing up. So I thought that was neat. And then we were getting ready to leave, and there was a little ring, like a ring that you put on your finger next to my stuff. It was not there when we got there. And I'm packing up my stuff. I see something silver on the ground, get my flashlight, and then yeah, it was a little ring, and it fit perfectly on one of my ring fingers, and it looked like little mountains on it. So I don't know. That was really random. I felt like it was a gift to me, so I left some sage in return.
All right, let's go to another question. Let's go to Polly, who's asking, have you ever had any alien healing experiences?
Well, I guess that one time I talked about where like I was getting really, really bad headaches, and then I felt amazing. Like it went, all the headaches went away. I was really, really cold. I couldn't get warm. And then I felt this warmth come over me. And then I felt like I was being hugged by the universe. So I think that was a healing experience. I would love for them to get the rods out of my back one day so I'm not in constant pain. That would be amazing. But I also don't go into CE5s or anything with like intent or anything. If it happens, amazing. If it doesn't, it's okay.
Wonderful. Wonderful. All right, let's continue on here. Another one from Polly. She's just racking up the questions tonight. Do you believe Men in Black and the Shadow People are from the same family?
That's a good question. Honestly, in a way, I think there's different types of shadow beings. I think that there are Men in Black that are shadow people and vice versa, but I also feel like there are shadow beings that aren't associated with the Men in Black. Like, I know the ones that I dealt with were huge, and they were very protective of the property that we were on. So I think that's why I had all those experiences, was because they wanted us off the property, especially me, because I could see them and interact with them. So yeah, I think that's like a yes and no answer. Like, yeah, I think that they're the same thing, but I also think that there are some that are different.
Let's move on. Let's go over to Chris with a space in her name. Teen. Do shadow people mean harm, or are they just guardians looking out for us?
I think that's another vice versa question, kinda. I think it depends on them, because the ones that I encountered definitely were not nice. But I've also seen some while ghost hunting, and they didn't mean any harm. Like, they were curious, and um, they interacted with us. So I think it just depends on what it is. If it's like a person, like somebody that passed away or something, maybe they're just like looking around and wanting to interact with us. But if it's like an actual being, like possibly like a watcher or something of that caliber, and it doesn't want you around, I think it will mean you harm.
All right, let's go on. Let's go to Joe, who's got beautiful hair, by the way. Joe does. Do shadow people see us as shadow people? Interesting question.
That's another interesting question. I mean, I guess we will never know unless we get to talk to one. I mean, it's a possibility, since we can only see a certain like spectrum of light and only a certain percentage of stuff. Maybe it's the same for them. So maybe they see us differently than we see them.
Let us continue. Android wants to know, have your experiences increased or decreased when you moved to your current house?
They've definitely decreased. Nothing's followed me for a few years. Um, Whatever was at that house is still at that house, because a few years back, I wanted to show Steve where I used to live. So it was around Christmas time, so we were down with my family, and I drove him past the house, and I got that same I don't feel good feeling. And then I saw one of the shadow figures lurking in the field next to the house. So I slammed on the gas really quickly. Luckily, it didn't follow me that time. Um, so I have not had anything from that house follow me to my current house.
All right, let's continue. Polly is asking, do you think paranormal is genetical? Will children experience their parents' paranormal entities?
I believe that like psychic stuff is definitely generational. I have a few friends who are psychic, and their mom was, and their grandma was. I'm adopted, so I don't know my real family, so I don't know if I got the abilities like genetically, and I don't have any kids and don't plan on it, so I guess I'll never know the answer to that one.
And yet you answered it perfectly. Super Crazy wants to know, do you have experiences whenever you walk in and around cemeteries?
Actually, no. Cemeteries, I guess it just depends on the cemetery, but like the ones in Salem definitely have energy there. That would make sense. But there's a few just around my house that like we go to, and I don't really feel anything and nothing happens. So I think it just depends on the energy at the cemetery.
All right, let us continue for more, shall we? Let's go over to Super Crazy again. What are your favorite ghost and alien movies?
Oh God. Uh well, ET movies, I don't like anything fear-based, so I love ET and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and then obviously anything documentary that's positive and not negative. Ghost films, again, I'm not too big on like fear-based stuff, but I do enjoy the Conjuring series about Ed and Lorraine Warren. I like those a lot. So those are my favorites, I guess.
Appreciate that. We got a couple more here for you. So let's give Super Crazy the hat trick. Do you think the U.S. government has made any kind of deals with extraterrestrials, like letting them take our citizens in exchange for their technology?
I do believe that, and I think that deal was made way back in like the 40s, around the Roswell time. I know a lot of researchers have thought about that too, but I do think that that's a possibility because it is kind of weird how a lot of these people have been seeing stuff, and so many people have had the exact same experience, but yet the government's not saying anything. That's a little weird to me. But now they're kind of saying something, and I'm wondering if that's for the whole Project Bluebeam thing, where the fake alien invasion that people have talked about. Because it's kind of weird how they're being a little more open about it out of nowhere.
All right, let's continue. Let's go to Tim Mothman and his goatee, two separate entities. What do you think the relationship is between sleep paralysis and shadow people?
I have had that happen, and it sucks. I've had sleep paralysis a few times and then seen a shadow person. Um, I know when it happened to me, it was because they liked tormenting me at that house. I've had sleep paralysis at my current house once or twice, but I didn't see any shadow people. But I did feel like something was there. And it was also during the day, so I don't know. It was definitely weird, but I do think it depends on the being. For all we know, they're a different race or entity altogether. And when they're trying to like communicate with us, maybe it freezes us like that. Or it could be something that is meaning us harm, and it makes sure that we can't move. I know a lot of ET experiencers, they wake up paralyzed and then they get abducted. So it could be something like that as well.
All right. Castle Dude wants to know, have you ever seen a possessed person's face change in appearance?
Not in person, just on film and TV. I haven't seen it in person. Kind of happy about that. I don't know if my face changed that one night that I lost time and didn't remember stuff. Um, so and there was before camera phones and stuff. So I don't know if my face changed. That would be interesting to find that out. But I've never seen it in person. No,
I saw it once 3 weeks ago.
I heard that story.
Yeah.
That's
Not fun.
crazy.
Not fun. All right, let's go to T-Bone. Have you ever asked them why you were chosen for these experiences?
In a way, yes. I don't feel like the why me, this is horrible, this sucks type of feeling. I have been like, so what is my purpose? And I've always gotten the answer of I'm supposed to share these experiences so other people can hear them, to let people know that they're not alone and they can speak about this. I'm actually even going to be hosting a like ET experiencer meetup once a month at this crystal shop that I'm friends with the owners pretty soon here. So I think the whole reason that I experienced all of that is it did make me the person that I am today. So I don't regret the experiences anymore. And I also feel that I am, because of the fact that I'm a very strong person, that's why all that happened. So I can look at it now as a positive aspect of my life instead of why did all this happen to me? This is like not I'm not happy with this. I'm grateful for the stuff that I did go through because it made me who I am, and I feel that that's my purpose on this planet, I guess, or during this lifetime, is so I can share the experiences.
Great way to say it. All right. Let's go to Polly. What do you think is wrong with these shadow people? Why can't they just move on to the light?
Well, I think the ones I dealt with were protectors of the land since it was an Indian burial ground. So I don't think they were people. I think they were more so beings. different type of beings that were there, put there, or maybe they were just there, the land spirits that were there, and they were trying to protect the land, especially because ever since we moved out of that house, it hasn't been occupied. So it's been over a decade and nobody has lived in that house.
T-Bone wants to know, have you ever seen shadow animals?
Actually, yes, I've seen a couple cats, and then there was this one really big dog type figure that I saw at the property. It would peek out from really big like oak trees every now and then. So its head was definitely taller than like a German shepherd, but it had the pointy ears like a German shepherd did.
Castle Dude in the UK is asking, if ghosts can come into our realm, can we go into their realm?
Well, there's a theory that we're actually the ghosts on their realm. I think that people that astral project definitely can go into different dimensions and realities. And I know that there are some people that experience like time slips where somebody unfortunately is reliving their death over and over and over again, and they'll see it happen like with their eyes. So that could possibly mean that somebody kind of went over into their realm a little bit, in my opinion, at least.
All right, let's move on to Mama Catherine. Love you, Mama Catherine. She says, what do you think causes apports?
I've actually never really seen an apport. I know what it is, and I know people that have seen it in person. Honestly, I kind of think that it's almost like a popping into a different dimension, or possibly a portal, maybe like a small portal, like opens up and like a book falls from the ceiling or something. So it could be with maybe frequency too. Like there's a different frequency. Yep. Sorry.
We got 2 minutes to go here with you.
Okay.
And what do you want people to know about being a lifelong experiencer? What is the message that you have for those out there?
Well, you're definitely not alone. There are quite a few people that have had experiences their whole life. So don't feel isolated, don't feel alone, and find people that you trust and open up about it, or find groups or podcasts or something to where people talk about this so you can talk about it too. I never thought that I would ever actually be on Spaced Out Radio talking about my experiences. Never thought that would happen, let alone run my own well, I don't run it, but I'm a co-host on a podcast called Late Night Legends. So I do that as well. If you like I was saying, just know that you're not alone, and other people do experience this stuff. Don't think of it negatively. It might be scary at first, but it could lead to something positive in the future. That's what happened to me.
I love it. I thought that was a great message. And for you, what do you do to move on?
Me, I tried to pretty much turn all the negative into positive. Like I was saying, all the crazy bad stuff that happened to me made me the person I am today. And I do love the person that I am today. And I like being able to help people, because I've had a few people actually open up to me about certain things that have happened to them because they see me doing it. So they feel like I'm someone that they can talk to about this. And I've helped them pretty much get over the why is this happening to me scary hump. And now they're looking at it with a different aspect and a different set of eyes.
Love it. I love it. Jessiy, thank you for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight. You've been an amazing guest, and good luck with your show. And
Thank you.
I think there was talk in the chat room that they wanted to bring me on your show. So I'll just say yes to that. We'll figure it out.
Okay.
All right. All right. Coming up next in hour 3, because we have another hour to go here, Steve Stockton from Tales Untold, then Nicole Sackage and friends on the UFO Report.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. with your host, Dave Scott.
All right, we are clear.
The YouTube chat is hopping. Holy cow. I was not expecting that many questions. I'm actually kind of happy about that.
You brought a new record on X for us.
Oh, wow.
Yep, you are now the record holder for guests on X for us.
That's awesome.
324 live on X.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's sweet, Bobby G. I'll come on your show one day too. Yeah. My gosh. Hey, we love you around here, Jess. Thank you for reaching out. This was awesome. What I was hoping for, what I expected. And we did a really good radio show tonight.
That's awesome. I'm happy. If you ever want to have me back on, you know how to get a hold of me.
Yep. And I'll come on and tell you my weirdo-ness sometime. How about that?
Yeah, for sure. We'll have to set that up.
All right. You take care, okay?
You too. I'll talk to you later.
Talk soon, my friend.
Have a good night.
Good night. Jessiy Hawthorne, everybody. Great show. I'll be right back. Don't forget, we do have more coming up right after this, so stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Here we go. We got about a minute to go here. And waiting and waiting. All right. We're almost there. Big thank you tonight to T-Bone ×2, Dragonfly, and Cosmic Joe for the amazing super chats tonight. We greatly appreciate it, everybody. So thank you very, very much. We're going to bring on the new guests here, coming on up. Here we go, everybody. Here we go with the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We always do appreciate you tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America. We very much appreciate you listening on in. And don't forget, you can check out all of our shows on every major podcast network as well. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Reminder, we do have the password. Yes, we do. I'm having troubles pronouncing it. As the Desert Clam has set the password for tonight, the SOR Space Travelers Club. Resistentialism. I'm not even saying it twice. I don't want to. But that is your password from the Clam each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. It is time once again to say hello to Steve Stockton from Among the Missing and Another Creepy Story.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Among the Missing YouTube channel on Spaced Out Radio. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'm about to take you on an unbelievable journey of people just like you. Their stories and encounters will haunt us on Among the Missing. For 2 decades, I've served as a park ranger in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. In that time, I've witnessed the breathtaking wonders of nature, but I've also encountered unexplainable phenomena. This is the tale of the summer when I confronted the ghosts that haunt these ancient forests. It was early June when we started getting reports of strange occurrences. Hikers and campers were coming to the ranger station with tales of eerie sounds, ghostly apparitions, and unsettling feelings of being watched. Now, most of us dismiss these stories as the result of overactive imaginations or tricks of light and shadow. But as the reports grew more frequent and more detailed, it became harder to ignore them. One evening, just as the sun was setting, an older couple came into the station, their faces pale and their hands trembling. They'd been camping near Elkmont, an area known for its abandoned cabins and rich history. They claimed to have seen figures moving through the trees, heard whispers in the night, and felt an overwhelming sense of dread. They packed up and left in a hurry, abandoning their campsite. I decided to investigate. I've dealt with wildlife and the occasional lost hiker, but this felt different. I grabbed my flashlight and headed out to their campsite. Elkmont was eerily quiet when I arrived, a stark contrast to the usual sounds of the forest. I found the couple's campsite easily enough. Their tent was still there, along with their cooking gear and backpacks. It was clear that they had left in a hurry. I scanned the perimeter with my flashlight, looking for any signs of wildlife or intruders. That's when I heard it, a faint whisper, almost like a breath of wind, but more deliberate. I turned, shining my flashlight into the trees, but saw nothing. I called out, but the only response was the rustling of leaves. I felt a chill run down my spine. As I made my way back to the station, the whispers seemed to follow me, growing louder and more insistent. By the time I reached the station, I was convinced that something was indeed out there, watching me. The next day, I shared my experience with my fellow rangers, and some of them laughed it off, but a few looked concerned. There were stories among the rangers, tales of haunted trails and ghostly encounters, but they were usually told around the campfire and not taken seriously. Over the next few weeks, more reports came in. Hikers claimed to have seen shadowy figures darting between the trees. Campers heard footsteps around their tents at night, and some even reported feeling an unseen presence touch them. The park was buzzing with rumors of hauntings, and it was my job to get to the bottom of it. One night, I decided to stake out a particularly active area near Cades Cove. I set up a small camp and waited, my flashlight and camera ready. The night was clear and cold, the stars shining brightly overhead. I listened to the sounds of the forest, the rustling of the leaves, the distant calls of nocturnal animals. Hours passed, and I was starting to think it was a waste of time when I heard it again, that same faint whisper. I grabbed my flashlight and scanned the trees, my heart pounding. The whisper came again, closer this time. I swung the beam of light towards the sound and saw them, two glowing eyes staring back at me from the darkness. The figure stepped into the light, and I got my first good look at it. It was a woman, dressed in old-fashioned clothing, but her eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. She looked at me with a mixture of sadness and fear, her lips moving as if she was trying to speak. I raised my hand, trying to show I meant no harm. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice trembling. The woman didn't respond. She just stood there, staring at me. Then, as quickly as she had appeared, she turned and vanished into the forest, leaving me standing there, my heart pounding. I returned to the station, my mind racing with questions. What had I seen? Was it a ghost, a spirit trapped in the woods? I reported my findings to my supervisor, but he was skeptical. "Probably just a trick of the light," he said dismissively. "You know how shadows can play tricks on you out there." But I knew what I'd seen, and it wasn't a trick of the light.
Thank you to Steve Stockton from Tales Untold on YouTube for another creepy story. If you want more just like that, head on over to his YouTube channel. Hit subscribe, ring that bell. Let's get into the weird, the strange. It's UFO Court. And here we go.
That is an interplanetary flying space saucer. You have made me very angry. Very angry indeed.
All right, Nicole Sackett's probably asleep somewhere in her house right now. But that's okay. She brought us some fine guests as we have Ulrich, Tiff, and Fringe on here to talk about something that has become real popular over the last couple of months, and that is on X, where they have these live spaces. And these three are what I like to call the new part of ufology, where they're going out on social media, they're having these real conversations happening in real time, and anybody could really join in and make this happen and join their network to talk about UFOs, to talk about anything that's weird and strange going on. Ulrich, Tiff, Fringe, welcome to Spaced Out Radio for the first time. Ulrich, let's start with you here, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us.
Dave, it's awesome to be on the show, man.
Absolutely. Glad to have you here. What's with these X spaces that are just taking off, and they are getting, including yours, getting hundreds of people listening to them at all hours of the night?
Well, I think X Spaces represents a cross section of something radical and crazy. The idea that your favorite UFO Twitter or UFO celebrity could drop in and have a direct conversation with you, and that you could also just have a conversation with anyone and make a breakthrough and make a connection that you can't normally get. So it represents like a crazy idea with the town square. Am I making sense? Right, like when we see David Grush, we can't really just reach out and grab him, but you, in some cases, you can reach out and grab David Grush if he were on Twitter, and so it kind of represents that idea that you can have a back and forth with the person that you're pinning your hopes on in terms of ufology.
I think they have become a very, very important part, Tiff, of today's communication and new communication with how people are wanting to discuss this topic. It's one thing back even, going back to yesteryear, which is only about 12 months ago, where people would literally get on Facebook and they would type out all their messages and have these long text conversations going on, or these really long Twitter threads that were, at times baseless, because you kind of lose your way with tweets and retweets and retweets of retweets, and it really got complicated. But this new way that's developed over the last 12 months by Elon Musk on X, and these X spaces are what they're called for people who don't know, they have become an important way to kind of move the conversation between real people. It's like reading a newspaper in real time and having people being able to converse on it without the commercial breaks. We'll get you to unmute your mic.
I agree, actually. And it gives an open forum, so it's not like a situation where it's like having a conversation with people who have the same hobbies as you. There's no expectations of profiting. I mean, sometimes there is, but for the most part, we're just congregating. And when we're able to share our experiences in open forum, it's not only inviting to other experiencers when they hear how easy it is and how welcoming it is. Inspires people like Jason Sands to participate, and other people who are in the process, or just in general. I mean, people all the time. I've never said this out loud before. I just happened to fall into this room. I can't believe what you guys are talking about. And we're very close too. There's a lot of toxicity for sure, but I mean, that's any community, any chat room, anything like that, any forum. You're going to have toxicity, and not everybody can like each other. But I feel like there's a very large group of us that have just become family, and it's starting to become notable. We all have our niches. We're all the doomers here, but there's bunches of us, and for the most part, we're all very loving and open-minded people.
Why do you think this topic is creating, Fringe, such a big audience on X? I mean, something, whether you are pro UFO, anti UFO, pro science, pro experiencer, it really seems to allow a lot of different conversations to develop on this fringe phenomena that we all know and love to chat about. I mean, the people that are getting involved regarding this just seem to be from all facets of life, whether they're from the military or whether they're government contractors, whether they're making your sandwich at Subway. Everybody who's had an experience finally has found a place on a social media platform like X Spaces to do this. I mean, how do you feel about those conversations?
Oh gosh, I love the conversation. So as much as I love podcasts, and I think everyone really does love podcasts, it's like what Ulrich was saying, and like Dick was saying, it's the town square, and it's this place where we can go for conversation. It's not just a one-sided one guest. It's a conversation. You can have a panel of guests. You can have questions. There's a lot of interaction. The UFO community in particular has just built a fabulous place. There's a space going almost all day, sometimes, far into the night for hours and hours. And for me, I sometimes say it saved my life. At about this time last year, I was having some horrible experiences with the phenomenon. I felt really lost. I was totally alone. And I don't even remember how I found this place on Twitter. and specifically for the UFO community. But I suddenly found myself in a place with other people who were experiencing the very same thing I was. So I think especially for the UFO community, for abductees, for experiencers, it's a fantastic place to be. It's unlike any other place. I can meet experiencers from across the world, and we can chat and we can discuss, the things that are happening to us. It's therapeutic. It's like a support group. There's really nothing like it out there, and it's right now. It's the place to be. I mean, if you want to find out what's going on in the UFO community, there's no place like Twitter for getting the news. Everything from news to skeptics, debunkers, experiencers, abductees, researchers, historians. We're all there, and it's just a phenomenal place to be. I especially want to encourage abductees and experiencers to jump onto Twitter and join in, because just meeting a community of people who are supportive and who understand what you're going through, it's literally saved lives.
Now, I do have to ask you, Fringe, while we're on here, about this subject, because as Sweet Robbie G, my weekend host on After Hours, states in our chat room, and I agree with him. I have a love-hate relationship with X spaces. They're absolutely great until the trolls move in and it becomes toxic. And all it takes is one to really change the atmosphere of a great conversation that is going on. And for me, watching the toxicity over the last number of years on Twitter, then into X as the name changed, regarding this subject has been very difficult for me, not only as a journalist and one of the only journalists out there who's actually an experiencer as well. How do you combat that? How do you, try and keep a safe place for new people to come on in without getting into all the drama and the aspects that kind of seem to follow along with them?
Well, the way I combated it, Dave, because you're 100% right. When I first came to the community, I got into a couple spaces. They were so therapeutic. I will always be thankful to the first couple of spaces I was in. I was able to tell my story, and it was just phenomenal. And it was very helpful for me because I was completely lost. But then I did find the toxicity and the drama. I myself, I figured out pretty quickly that some people did not want to hear what I had to say. But to answer your question, the answer to the drama and toxicity that might be on the fringes of the community is I just did my own spaces. I decided I have my own voice and I'm going to do my own spaces. And in the spaces that I do, and now the spaces that the three of us do together, there's no toxicity, there's no drama, especially when it comes to experiencers or abductees or whistleblowers coming up to tell a story. It's just not tolerated. It's not acceptable. We're all human beings living our human lives, and we have to treat each other with dignity and respect. And there's nothing worse than a whistleblower or an abductee or an experiencer getting up the courage to actually tell their story for the first time and coming up against drama or toxicity. It's just not acceptable. We don't permit it in our rooms. And so many of the spaces these days are really getting a control over anything like that might come in. It's just not happening like it used to. And it doesn't take long to figure out whose spaces are safe to go in for whistleblowers and experiencers.
We have about 5 minutes to go before we have to take a break here at the bottom of the hour on Spaced Out Radio. We're talking with Ulrich, Tiff, and Fringe about X spaces with UFOs, experiencers, whistleblowers now coming in to these spaces. Ulrich, I want to ask you, because in the next half hour, we're going to get deep into the experiential side. We're going to get deeper into Jason Sands, a whistleblower who is coming out quite often now and dropping big information on Twitter spaces, sometimes for hours upon end. But Ulrich, for you, the one thing that I've done in my research is look, at who you guys are and what you're doing. And Ulrich, you have developed quite a hefty reputation as somebody who runs a very good space. You become very popular with the field in the way you handle these conversations that are going on. Is this something that the UFO public was looking for? Is just to have a good conversation, considering the sometimes verbal anarchy that was going on? And that's the way you've been able to kind of bring it all together under one roof for everybody to kind of have that zone where they could just have a good conversation on a Wednesday night or a Thursday morning or a Saturday evening.
Well, Dave, I appreciate the question. I think some things are only possible when you have a certain combination. So I have a very intense personality, and it took someone like Tiff to be open-minded about me when I first joined the X Spaces community, which was roughly, let's say, like end of November last year, to say, hey, you have interesting ideas. You want to talk about this dark stuff. Let's maybe do a doomer space. And when I found out about Fringe, I had the idea, maybe we should do something with Fringe. And before I even could pass the idea by Tiff, we were already in a group chat. So if you have a heterodox personality or an intense personality, you have the opportunity to lend license to people who have ideas that are less welcome in the community. So I think it's really important to give license to dissenting views in such a way that's safe. I think most people like me because there's room to disagree with 70 to 99% of the things that I believe. And what the UFO subject is subversive truth. The truth, the deeper it is subversive. And the UFO topic is subversive to essentially all of the underpinnings of society. So how are you going to lead in a space? How are you really going to convey that there's room for you to have a dissenting opinion? You need to be able to boldly lean into something and still give space to have the opposite opinion without toxicity. And it's been a challenge, and I'm really proud of the three of us. I think we represent an authentic way to be dangerous, and still protected at the same time. Meaning, if we have an experiencer on, there's a good chance they're going to be more of the love and light and positive variety, and we're known as the people who really think in more than not, the phenomenon is often deceptive. So how do we win over those experiencers to come into our spaces and share? It's because we allow them to lean in, and we're not trying to distort anybody's narrative. We're really transparent with our views and really protective over the authenticity of the experiencer themselves, so that their narrative is their narrative, even if it's in our spaces. I hope I'm making sense.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense because, everybody is allowed their own opinion. Everybody is allowed their own way of wanting to do things. And we got about 90 seconds, Tiff, before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour. For you, when you hear people, open up in a conversation like a Twitter X space regarding this subject about their experiences or what they saw, does it really kind of tug at your heart because of the way the emotion that comes out of a person's voice rather than watching, waiting for a typed message that we're normally used to?
Absolutely. It's nice to be able to also verbally comfort them in that situation, giving people space just to get it off their chest and talk about these things. It gives perspective. All of our experiences, anybody who's had an experience that's kind of phenomenal, it's unique to their perception. And so all three of us have different views on the whole entire doom topic and the extraterrestrial, fairy, whatever, the whole phenomenon. We all have our own original views because our experiences are unique to us. And it's kind of cathartic, honestly, in a way. It's such a woo niche thing to be in an experiencer community. So having like such an open forum where honestly you could listen anonymously for a while, jump in as a listener, and then where everybody could see you, and jump on the panel and share, and then disappear. So
wait right there. We're going to come back from our break here, continue the X-Space conversation on
This is Spaced Out Radio, and your host, Dave Scott.
All right, we are clear. I know you guys have brought in a huge audience on X tonight for us, so thank you very, very much for that. Greatly appreciate it. For anybody who's kind of tuning in for the first time, we are a hybrid of a live radio show that will be syndicated along with a live YouTube show and a live podcast all at the same time. So we do have to take commercial breaks at the top and bottom of the hours in order to time out everything with our radio affiliates. So you get to kind of see the behind the scenes conversation of everything that's going on. And just wanted to fill you guys in on, if they're not wondering, well, what the hell is all this going on? You know, what the hell? Your hair looks great, Fringe. Your hair looks great.
I don't know. It's 11.
Yeah. But I do appreciate you guys coming on and doing this. This is absolutely a lot of fun because I've wanted to have this type of conversation for a long time. I really have, just to learn more about it, especially for our audience, which is more old school, shall I say? And I don't mean that to be insultive, because I would throw myself in that category as well. You know, so I think what you guys are doing is fantastic. It really is.
Yeah, I think it's working out really nice. I mean, you're right. There's been a lot of drama, but I think more and more people are kind of getting away from it because it's not good. It's not good for anybody. So.
Well, we appreciate it. We appreciate you doing this, you know, and having some fun with us. You know, I mean, this is more of a controlled environment, and you know, I've thought about, even for myself, you know, if I had time, would I do that? I think I would. You know, I think it's a level of importance of trying to get the message out, because in the end, we're all experiencers of the phenomena. And, you know, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's indifferent, or whatever it may be, you know, we got to get that message out. And that the only way to do it is to talk about it. And that's just really cool.
And we're happy to be here, Dave. You know, we're happy when we got the invite from you and Nicole.
And even without Nicole, we're still happy to be here without Nicole.
And it's new for us because, you know what, there's so much good talent. Never mind what you guys are doing, because you guys are doing great, but there's so much new talent out there with YouTube channels and other mediums that they're going after, that it's refreshing to excuse me. It's refreshing to get some fresh voices and fresh opinions on what's going on in the UFO world. I mean, for so long, it's always seems to be, you know, every podcast or every radio show, it's the same guest telling the same story on, you know, 5 different nights a week on 5 different platforms. I apologize. I'm been getting over some allergy sickness. Never had allergies before until this year. And now it's hitting me.
It could also be the phenomenon, Dave. You might just be getting into a really good conversation. It's trying to hold you back.
Well, I do have some aliens, and I will be going out to look for Bigfoot tomorrow night.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. We have a couple good spots that we're going to go to tomorrow.
You know, we had Tony Merkel in a space not too long ago, and I was dumbfounded by the amount of overlap there is between the Bigfoot stuff and the alien stuff. I couldn't believe it. It was fascinating.
I have to tell you, I feel like I am so much more on board with the fairies, that kind of like concept. And it's not just, I don't want to name it, you know, because I feel like we're all talking about the same things, but they just have been given so many different names based on who's like perceiving it. But yeah, I think everything is true right now. It's crazy. But I feel like that is a sign of something catastrophic. You know, it's like when everything starts being true all at once and it's nonsensical, it's like that makes me feel like that's a sign that reality is kind of like imploding in on itself. And that on a celestial scale could be because we're close to the cycle process. And so that's why everything's getting super weird. Everything, like all the woo, everything, everywhere, all at once.
Or let me throw a wrench in you because we only got about 25 seconds till we come back on air. Maybe, just maybe, it's always been there, but your eyes are just starting to notice. Ooh.
Well, yeah, that's exactly. It's like the magnetic field. It actually, I posted a AI video today, but the magnetic field messes with our pineal gland. And
I hate to cut you off. I apologize. We're coming back in like 7 seconds. Thank you, T-Bone ×2, Dragonfly, and Joe, and to all our new ex-followers at Spaced Out Radio. We appreciate it. Here we go with the final half hour. Final half hour Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you for joining us. My name is Dave Scott. We are talking about X Spaces, the platform formerly used Twitter, how powerful and popular they are becoming. Ulrich, Tiff, and Fringe will be with us here momentarily, but before we bring them back on, I want to remind all of you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, our archives are always free on YouTube, Twitch, and every major podcast network out there. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go. Ulrich, Tiff, and Fringe, they host Twitter X Spaces. These are incredible. If you haven't heard one, you can find them on any topic you want by just going on X, picking your topic, and looking for them. Very easy to find. But we're talking UFOs tonight. And Ulrich, one of the topics that has been hot at hand over the last few months is whistleblower Jason Sands coming out and literally dropping the bombs on a lot of information that people have towards him. Now, right at the beginning, there wasn't a lot of people who believed his story. They felt he was kind of full of it. They didn't believe that he had testified in front of Congress. They didn't even believe he was a government employee. But he seems to be proving all of that and still going strong on these X spaces where he feels comfortable and opening up with a lot of interesting topics. Fill us in, Ulrich, on what your thoughts are on Jason Sands.
Well, I think what you're seeing is actually, and forgive me, I tend to talk in grandiose terms. I have an intense personality, and I view what's happening right now in a historical context. And I think what's happening right now in terms of, let's call them disclosure voices, right? Some people want to be pedantic and nitpick over the meaning of whistleblower. Somebody who's some sort of a firsthand witness or experiencer or revealing a hidden truth is the question of credibility and merit. So, is something credible because it has status, because it has accepted credibility, or something credible because it withstands the test of scrutiny? And this is the big shift that's happening, where initially Jason Sands might have been covered as somebody who, well, if he's really a credible witness, why is he coming out on X Spaces? X Spaces has the opposite view largely, which is if you're really credible, you're willing to take, the firing squad of the diehard bleeding heart ufologists for 6.5 hours, and you're going to take every question under the sun. And this has really given birth to what I call the disclosure wars. How is disclosure supposed to happen versus how does it need to happen, or how will it happen? Is it going to happen in a decentralized, meritocratic way on social media, where if you have something to say, you're actually going to say it, you're going to back it up? Or is it going to happen the goody two-shoes Boy Scout way, the Grushian way? And I think we're seeing a shift that's subversive and refreshing, because if you're willing to be dangerous, UFO Twitter says you have merit.
Well, and I think that's a good point to make, because when you get into the disclosure aspect of it all, Tiff, and you get people like Jason Sands coming out giving this information that he's dropping about what he knows, does it really turn a new light towards disclosure, considering everything from Washington, D.C. over the last years trying to close the door on this conversation? They don't want to talk about disclosure anymore. They don't want to talk about UFOs. They don't want to talk about anything to do with this subject about experiencers or non-human intelligence. And it's places like you guys have that's really keeping that door open for people to keep the conversation going. And conversation is power.
It absolutely is. And what I think of that is not only am I really, really thankful for the opportunity to speak to really smart people who are very knowledgeable, but the knowledgeable part is the issue. The people making these decisions, there's only a little bit of them who are actually fully in the know. So they're not making informed choices on this. They're just making whatever is the most suitable for their needs, and which is most likely profiteering. And I'm seeing these whistleblowers coming out with a sense of urgency. And that, to me, is a big deal. They feel it's necessary and urgent to let us know what's going on. But they need, the rest of our government system to get behind us. And you see it in other countries, too. You've got Japan jumping on the Peruvian mummies. I mean, it got a lot of traction. There's a lot of energy and a lot of reporting going on about this, and all I'm getting is a sense of urgency. So the Spaces is a wonderful forum. It's a wonderful platform to get people talking and interested, and it's no pressure.
I like that. Thank you. But you said something that was very poignant there, and I never get to use the word poignant, so I'm going to use it right now, about something that has very, very much caught my attention over the last couple of years is what I like to call disclosure for dollars, where we see a lot of these companies trying to get in there and make a voice for themselves regarding this subject, like they care, but in the end, they always seem to be about how are they going to get the money. How are they going to get the money? It's not about getting the message out to the people or what's best for the public. It's about how can we get the money and the funding to do this. Are you noticing that as well, with the frustration, Tiff, with people regarding this?
Absolutely, absolutely. The majority of the people in the community are not people who are making money off it. They are the people investing in it, and happily, a lot of us, are like full on behind disclosure. The problem is like a common denominator is NHR not classified. I've heard that from more than one person who has been able to access that information in the past. NHI itself are not classified. So we could just have a conversation with these guys and they won't get in trouble. And they're not doing that. Any of these people that say they know stuff, they're not sharing classified information if they're telling us the truth about what this is. Now, if it's classified, that means it's property of the government or whomever, whatever project. So if we can't get that information, it's because it's national security, and it's probably because it's our property. And just, I think anything we can see in this tangible dimension is a man-made, whether it's assisted by NHI or whatever, or a past civilization who may have had the access to the NHI. So yeah, I think that they're making it a long game for the profit.
What do you think about that, Fringe? We'll get you to unmute your mic first.
Yeah, that's what I love about just the UFO Twitter community and Spaces in general, is it's just grassroots. There's just a lot of, there are people out there making money off this topic, but they're not in our spaces. Everyone in our spaces are just your average, everyday grassroots people just digging up information. I was saying earlier, we have historians, we have experiencers, we have people, very highly intelligent people in these spaces, chatting it up and exchanging ideas and bringing disclosure to Twitter. I mean, disclosure is in these spaces every single day, and there aren't a whole lot of dollars going on in Twitter spaces. And so the private corporations and organizations making money off of disclosure, they're not in our space that I'm aware of. I think it's mostly grassroots, and that's part of the beauty of it.
Do you look at it? Sorry, Tiff, Fringe, do you look at it as, we are not really seeing a true disclosure? We're seeing a business being built, a multi-billion-dollar business being built right in front of our eyes. Is that the way you're looking at it too, as it leaves grassroots and gets more political and more financial?
Yeah, I mean, I think it even probably gets even worse than that. I mean, there's probably even some other nefarious reasons why we don't get disclosure from the government. You've got your private corporations outpacing the government at this point. And yeah, it's not looking too good. I'm not certain that we'll actually get government disclosure if we want to define disclosure as hearing from our government about what's going on. I'm not sure we're going to get it anytime soon. But disclosure is happening every day in UFO Twitter spaces with these whistleblowers coming in. You have firsthand witnesses. You have a gentleman like Jason Sands who's putting up his DD-214, posting it on his account. A gentleman who's had, he's had an eyewitness account is a guy who talks to David Brush. I mean, it doesn't get, disclosure is not any closer than that. Being able to be in a space, asking these people questions. I think that's what it's all about. And yeah, there's that stuff going on, but I try not to concern myself with it too much because it doesn't affect me that much. And I think, yeah, I'll just leave it there.
Tiff, you wanted to make a comment before I accidentally cut you off.
Oh, no, not at all. I was just going to jump on what she was saying because, yeah, Jason Sands was like the biggest treat to people wanting to get like credible information. I was just going to point out that the majority of us are non-credible witnesses, but we aren't wrong either. So you get a lot of like real information, real data, and that's what Sands is pushing the most. He's like, you guys have to start collecting data. We need, it's like it can't be controlled like that anymore. As a community, if we're so invested, it's the data that's most important. And yeah, it's inspiring, honestly.
What's your thoughts on that, Ulrich? I mean, the way disclosure is going here, do we look at it as we're going to get a true disclosure? I don't believe in it. I've often told our audience here, and I'm curious your thoughts, that we are in a confirmation movement, a confirmation that the phenomena and UFOs are real, not UAPs, UFOs. I believe UAPs are quite man-made. So I'm curious your thoughts on disclosure or confirmation.
Yeah, I think there's two types of truth, and there's two types of disclosure. So one is the epistemic kind, the understanding what is really going on, what is the nature of reality. Is this NHI? Is this man-made? I call that, I call that proving the truth. And then there's a more political disclosure, meaning some people are experiencers and they know a part of the truth, and they're not looking for confirmation or affirmation. They're looking for the world to change. They're looking to split the world in half with a knowledge that would re-architect all of society. And I think that kind of truth matters. There's a lot of people on X who've lost their entire extended families. They're not just at a different dinner table on Thanksgiving. They've paid an extraordinary price. Some people have paid the ultimate price, the loss of children or the loss of loved ones due to the phenomenon. So when you have something like that, I think when you're asking, when I look at X spaces and I look at like the Sands phenomenon, I'm looking at failure as the greatest opportunity. There's a failure of whistleblower protections. There's a failure of the traditional congressional process. There's a failure of academia to deal genuinely with truth when it comes to remote viewing, when it comes to theoretical physics or advanced propulsion systems. And there's a failure of media to actually break the story the stories that are the greatest stories on Earth. And that failure is a major opportunity for X spaces. X spaces are a threat. And I want to be taken literally. X spaces are a threat to the failure of the three major institutions of government, academia, and news, because it's so easy to do a better job. And what X Spaces says is it's very easy to pick up the ball and do better where mainstream media has failed, and that is to actually speak about the phenomenon.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that right at the end, because I was kind of laughing and chuckling last night during our show where we were talking about the idea that, Danny Sheehan's new group wants to, go to CNN and get them on the UFO question on the presidential ballot, for their journalists to ask. And here I'm thinking CNN has done nothing for ufology through this entire last few years. And in fact, a lot of their talking heads on screen have made fun of us. They've made fun of the topic. The former host Don Lemon, for one, basically called us a bunch of crackpots. Why are we wasting airtime on this silly topic? And yet other outlets are like, even whether you like or hate News Nation, they're doing a great job at covering this story, and they're not letting it go. So I think we got to be able to find that balance. But I see where you're saying that these X spaces are dangerous, because this is where people are having the real conversations, and it's not about trying to play the media card on this, whether you're left, whether you're right, or whether you're down the middle. And I think that is something that we all have to start to accept. You know what I'm saying?
May I agree with you and push back a little at the same time?
Please do.
Almost everybody's going to agree. And by the way, we all had that moment, right? Anybody who's like appealing, I'm not going to say pandering, I love Sheehan, but this idea that we need to go and cajole mainstream media, kind of like a dog whistle to get them come and pursue truth in the world history's greatest story ever, is a little bit insane, right? Like, we need to embrace the fact that they've dropped the ball, embrace their failure, and run with it, because we agree with you, Dave. We're not going to get a voluntary disclosure, but I view this failure as the mechanism. I view it as a feature, not a bug. And I view it as you skate where the puck is going to go, and there's going to be a bunch of institutions that collapse due to their failure on reporting truth. And this is a feature, and this is how you make disclosure happen involuntarily from the government. You beat them to it. We are really, I say, almost every, or at least I think it out loud, disclosure is the right people having the right conversation in the right space at the right time. That's all it takes. And then you usurp the very purpose of the presidency, which is to tell the world we're not alone, right? That's all it takes. So any space that happens, it could be that space where the presidency is proved sort of obviated and redundant.
I would agree with that. We got 4 minutes to go on the show. And, if I'm just going to put the invite out for our YouTube audience, if you guys want to stick around for a bit after the show, that would be wonderful. If you're not too tired and you want to stick around, we would love to have you.
I'm down, Dave.
Right on. Let's just go for it. So with 4 minutes to go, Tiff, what is your message to people out there who are not familiar with these spaces and what they could get out to them? Why would you want me, as a middle-aged 51-year-old, handsome 51-year-old man, to come into these conversations about UFOs? What would it be the benefit to me?
Well, although it is an X space, it's pretty anonymous. You can go in there and you don't have to participate. You can just listen in. And it's always a variety. You never know what's going to happen. It's like if you enjoyed those IRC chat rooms or anything like that, it's like that but with face bubbles and voice chat. So we all need each other, kind of. We need our experience. We need our knowledge. I get corrected all the time because, I'm a Fruit Loop and I'm not always right, and that's okay. But yeah, I need that though. I'm not one of those people that's like not so interested in learning that I can't hear that I'm wrong. And same with all of us. That's the three of us. We get along because we are always correcting each other. We're enlightening each other, whatever. And honestly, it is so refreshing. I absolutely love it. I'm sorry for anybody who has a bad experience. I'm sorry if I've given anybody a bad experience, but it's one of my favorite things to do now, is just to learn with my friends.
See, I'm trying to teach my after hours host, Rob G, about that, but he hasn't come around to hockey yet. One of these days we'll get him. Good. But for you, Fringe, how is this, as an experiencer, with 2 minutes to go here, been a great release for you to be able to share your stories, your thoughts with other people listening, rather than people contradicting or putting down what you have gone through?
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier in the show. I've said before, UFO Twitter spaces specifically saved my life. And I don't mean it quite literally, but I was in a very, very dark place. And when I found spaces and I found my initial exposure to spaces was with two different spaces hosts. They were phenomenal. They were welcoming. They asked a lot of really great questions. They didn't make me feel like I was crazy. We have, especially for abductees and experiencers, there's not a lot of people to talk to. I'm very fortunate for myself because my spouse is also an experiencer, but so many people come to the community. These are people who can't even speak to their own spouse about what's going on. They can't speak to their family. They can't speak to their coworkers or their friends, and they have no outlet at all. There's nobody to speak to about what's happening to them. And we're talking about things that sound like science fiction, and they don't want to be thought of as crazy. So especially when experiencers find UFO Twitter spaces, it's extremely therapeutic. I have had experiencers write to me and say that they were close to suicide before finding spaces. I mean, that's how important this community is for experiencers. And I just can't talk more highly about it. We have some great hosts out there, especially the ones I experienced, right off the bat. They were fantastic and phenomenal. You had Logan's space going today. That was fantastic. We had Rob's space. I think Jason's was first in Rob's space and then Logan's space today. Just being able to, have that conversation that Tiff was referring to. I can tune into a space and learn something any minute of any day in a UFO Twitter space. And then also just find that therapy and community of like-minded people who are, we're all just there searching for the truth. And we, come together and exchange ideas, and there's just really nothing like it.
On that note, we only have about 30 seconds before we go on or have to sign off tonight. I want to say a big thank you, Ulrich, Tiff, and Fringe, for really breaking down the importance of these X spaces. And, I encourage our listeners to go out there and actually tune you guys in and tune in others to find where they feel it's right and where they can feel their message gets across. So thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
As we say hello to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Ball, rocking in the background with Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in, at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, Elga, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, Space Travelers Club, and on X. Hashtag Spaced Out Radio.
I know you're out there somewhere.
Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
make a mistake. We're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night, everybody. All right. There goes the radio side. You guys can pop back on if you want. The serious biz is now complete. How you doing, Ulrich and Fringe?
We're doing well.
Yeah. Thank you for doing this again, guys.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So what's your experience, Ulrich?
You mean in terms of the phenomenon?
You got some aliens, don't you?
What's really interesting is that there's a lot of people where it's sort of their ufology beginnings are more around 2017, or even sooner, right? Like post COVID. So, I mean, I do have a COVID-ish experience right around 2020. 2020. I did in one of the few places you can legally do ayahuasca in Florida, and it was very phenomenon specific, and it was about disclosure. But also around 2017, 2018 is where, for the first time, I took seriously the possibility that there could be an active NHI presence here. So that's where I got into it. But a lot of it is, people often have there's a weird thing, right? In some ways, it's the most impersonal thing in the world to suggest we're not the only really intelligent species. And in another way, many people have a very personal relationship with it, whether it's abduction or a personal healing experience. So I don't know how to give you a really cogent answer, but yes, it's deeply impacted my life.
I think you brought up a good point, though, and I'm sometimes naive to this, even though I've talked about it numerous times, is that there's a real difference between the UFO eyewitness or experiencer researcher prior to 2017 to the investment people have made in this subject since 2017, whether they're experiencers or whether they just have a vested interest because they believe there's something more out there. Where do you see the entire line, Ulrich, in between that is drawn between the 2017 year prior and after in ufology?
Well, I really don't know if I would draw the line there. There's something collectively or historically where you can draw the line upon the release of the 2017 article, but it would actually draw the line of along the lines of, are you looking for confirmation of reality, or are you looking for the world to change because you're already a knower? That's sort of where I would draw the line. Are the Jungian quote, I do not believe I know, I think is where I would draw the line for people in ufology. I hope it's okay. I'm sort of avoiding your question.
Oh, you're totally avoiding it, but that's okay. I
just don't have a good answer for your question. That's that interesting. To be honest with you.
What do you think about that, Fringe?
I was not around the topic in 2017. I am brand new to this topic. Just about this time last year, I found UFO Twitter, found UFO Twitter Spaces. I wasn't familiar with the history, with disclosure. I think I had seen a couple of those videos come out on Joe Rogan once. And I just had very limited exposure to the topic. So I'm not really great on going back to 2017 and doing a comparison. What I've noticed just from being around in the community, so for myself, I don't concern myself too much with disclosure. But I will say that most people do. I mean, most people are wanting government disclosure and wanting them to come out with it, which I totally understand.
Do you believe in that, though?
I don't think we'll ever hear the truth from the government. I don't think we'll ever hear about how deep everything goes, how far that rabbit hole goes from the government. And so that's why I just emphasize, I can sometimes get frustrated, to be honest, because here we are, in these Twitter spaces with a whistleblower, a firsthand witness who has spoken with David Brush, who has testified in front of Daryl, if I'm not mistaken. I'll jump in and correct me. And that's just not good enough. And, coming from a law enforcement background, I understand evidence. I understand that everyone wants evidence, and I get it. But we have people coming into the spaces every day telling us what's happening, what's going on out there. What the space Jason did today was phenomenal. All of the tidbits that he threw out there, it was just, it was mind-blowing to me that we have a firsthand witness who was in the intelligence community. And by the way, we've had multiple now coming into Twitter spaces and telling us what's going on behind the scenes. I think it's fantastic. I don't really wait for the government to disclose. I'm not concerned with disclosure. So it's kind of why I fall a little short on that conversation. It's just because it's not something that I'm thinking is going to happen in a way that anybody's looking for.
See, for me, I left terrestrial radio in Vancouver back in 2007. And when I hung up my microphone for the final time at 10:47 p.m. on July 4th, 2007, yes, I do remember the time. I literally never thought I would get back into radio. Never. And then in 2011, when my own experiences started, that's where I started staying up all night trying to figure out what the hell was going on. And then it wasn't until 2014 when I was recommended to start this up. And I didn't like when I left terrestrial radio in 07, I left right before the podcast boom came out. And you remember the iPod Nanos and the iPods, people were just getting into those and they were starting to download things. And when I left radio, I didn't even know what any of that was. I didn't when I left. So in 2014, when I was recommended to start SOR, I had no clue. I'm like, you just can't walk into a radio station and say, hey, give me the nighttime time slot. That's not how it really works. They're like, well, do this online thing, man. And it blew me away. It really did. And to see how that has expanded into every type of medium that's out there for people to get their messages out, I think it's absolutely phenomenal. I really do. And the fact is, it's also, and I think you guys summed it up nicely, it's giving people a chance to voice their opinions and their experiences without having to wait for Coast to Coast AM or Spaced Out Radio or CNN or somebody like that to actually come out and say, hey, by the way, this is happening. This is real. This is what we know about it. So I commend you guys for your hard work. I really do. And it's not easy, but you got a lot of egos to control. I'm a controlled environment because I'm dealing with one person. I couldn't imagine dealing with, 200-300 people or more, 500-700 people. And all want to speak.
It can be insane, Dave. Yeah. Sometimes even just the premeditation of like all the hypothetical universes of the interruptions that might happen is a whole other back channel chat that Tiff, Fringe, and I are having of just the anticipation of disruption can mess with your head.
Now, how often are you guys doing it? I have seen you guys online doing it, but is this a daily thing for you? Are you doing it every second day? Have you got a shared schedule? Because one thing that pissed me off about today when Jason Sands was going off, I'm sitting at my daytime job, which I can't tune in, and I'm sitting there trying to figure out, okay, how do I get that information when I'm sitting here at my daytime job, twiddling my thumbs, trying to figure out what's going on there. And I got to pay more attention there because that's where I'm getting paid, So what is your schedule that you guys do?
I mean, it's sort of unilateral and selfish, but it's also because I have a harder time managing basic life. So I've let Tiff and Fringe know that I can really only be available Thursdays. But the phenomenon doesn't really care about your schedule. It doesn't have a lot of respect for balance or what's normal, right? So remember UFO Twitter week, Fringe, where we had 24 hours at least of scheduled spacing, and then other weeks where if we have 3 spaces in a week, Dave, each of those spaces could go an average of 8 hours. So that's 24 hours. And if that has an interruption in your life, that's sort of easy to underestimate. So even today, right? Like the intel wouldn't stop, and it was kind of my fault. I tagged Jason Sands and Logan Space, and he immediately jumped in. So I don't really have a right
for this.
I think so. I'm not taking credit for it, right? But I would say that
what the hell. Take it. It's fun. It doesn't happen often.
Well, no, I mean, like, you can't take it for the whole community, right? But it is, you don't get to choose when disclosure happens, and that it's a drug-like relationship, because any moment you're thinking, is this when disclosure happens, right? It is disclosure heroin, X spaces.
That is true.
And I love what you said about conversation is power. Like, I'm probably gonna steal it from you, because that's the power that this is all the power that's left on the table. And where I said I was pushing back against you was, you said we need to find the balance, and I think balance is healthy, but there's no way you get government disclosure by finding balance, because you need to create an asymmetry of power, right? And that's where I was disagreeing with you. And I think I don't know, I'm really proud of the three of us, because it's been exhausting. When we first started, we were sort of controversial, and people were shaming us for being fearmongers, for just putting the negative side of the phenomenon on display. Everything was projected upon us. Oh, we just can't deal with our lives. We want to talk about doom and the apocalypse. But we've become a space where, if you start really dark and you're willing to talk about the most uncomfortable parts of the phenomenon, all of a sudden you've also solved toxicity. In other words, if you can have a space where the darkest topics can be talked about without toxicity, there aren't trolls who are jumping in feeling like they can push the envelope. You start at the edge, and you're already one of the most dangerous spaces on X space. So you're not really inviting trolls who are trying to subvert or become more dangerous. I hope I'm making sense. That was sort of the unexpected outcome of our spaces.
My audience is very much pro experiencer. They love the stories, albeit anecdotal. They love the fact that they can go into a safe area, which would be our chat room, to have that conversation with fellow people. For you guys going out there and trying to provide this on such a different type of platform, you need to be commended, number one. But number two, how do you choose your topics? Like, do you guys have a weekly conversation to say, hey, this is what I think we should talk about for the next 19 hours? Or how do you do it?
Fringe, I'll let you go ahead. I think we're still figuring this out.
Yeah, I think that, well, first of all, so when Tiff and Ulrich and I came together, we were drawn to each other, I think, because the three of us kind of put together things like catastrophic earth changes, like the pole shift, and we put that together with what's going on with UFOs and the alien agenda. And I think that it's unique, because I think a lot of people don't understand that, there's a possibility we've been reset, several times, and we might have something coming up. And so it's unique that we bring those two things together. We bring the alien agenda together with the catastrophic earth changes. And so that was our first topic. And we've kind of branched out from there to just anything that's interesting. And I think what's just a little bit unique about our spaces, and one thing that is sometimes not accepted in the UFO community in general, is that we do talk about the doom. We call it the doom room. We talk about the doom. We talk about the negative side of the non-human intelligence, and topics that other people aren't keen speaking about. There's an accepted narrative out there, and that is that most of this is about the love and light. And I push back on that a lot. And a lot of people don't want to hear really what I have to say. And that's why I did my own spaces. And that's how I found Tiff and Ulrich. But how we pick topics is just who's looking interesting. Somebody said something interesting. Somebody's a whistleblower. It's really branched out from just being the doom and just talking about things like the pole shift and aliens. Ulrich, if you want to jump in.
Yeah, I love this question. I think we're always asking it. Of course, it comes down a little bit to availability of, we want interesting guests. If they're not on X, it's going to be harder to get a hold of them. But I also think more and more we're developing a sense that if there's 50%, maybe not of our audience, but of UFO Twitter, that really, really, really wants us to have this guest on, and the other 50% that is absolutely opposed to it. That this might be a sign that they're perfect for the Doom Room. So even if they're not in line with our views of a more or a potential malevolent aspect of the phenomenon, if they're interesting and they're divisive, not the controversy alone, but for instance, the journalist Jon Stewart, right, who's known for bringing the alien interview to light, the one that came out in 1997. This was a trigger button issue for UFO Twitter. And when I personally wasn't that interested in the video, but there were so many people who said it has historical significance. It was actually the video that was shown to members of Congress that caused one person to have the stereotypical shaking paper and another person to just drink water uncontrollably. When you find out that something is really important or really interesting or misunderstood, something that is deeply misunderstood or controversial and dangerous in terms of potential truth, I think those are the best guests for the Doom Room. And to see our audience over the last 6 months, I'll tell you, for me personally, Fringe, I don't know if you feel the same way, but there was a moment, I would say halfway in, right around March, mid-March, when we were getting these extraordinary guests for UFO Twitter, when you could almost feel there was an appetite to talk about the things that you're not allowed to talk about, where you had sort of pushed through a threshold of the doom hazing, being hazed for talking about anything negative, and people were starting to crave these spaces. And it was really special. So in the middle of the controversy where people are complaining about our spaces, people are saying, when's the next doom space? And when that's happening, you're realizing you're having a conversation that other people aren't willing to have, and that's where your power comes in, Dave. The more of a conversation you're having that isn't had anywhere else, the more power your conversation has. And it was one of the most rewarding transitions for me to witness, because now the doom isn't as controversial. The fact that people like the doom, because it gives people a chance to have, are you really a positive person if you're avoiding the dark side? Or having a tolerance for reality, is that really the more optimistic view? And that's why it's sort of a Trojan horse for more resilience and more optimism. When we call ourselves doom, that's not fatalistic, it's not deterministic. It's really deeply what's the word? Aspirational. It's aspirational because everybody is going to crack when there is some sort of form of disclosure in society, and it's likely that everybody's going to come to people on UFO Twitter and they're going to say, hey, what's going on? What do you know about this? And to realize that what's going on right here on UFO Twitter, on your shows, is history in the making in real time, will give people a sense of specialness. Even if everybody's telling you you're crazy, you're actually a couple years, a couple months ahead of history, and you should cherish it and relish it and take it as a responsibility to push the envelope, because people are going to be coming to you, Dave. People are going to be your family, anybody who is somewhat knowledgeable of the phenomenon. You are going to become the leading edge expert, maybe even a spiritual, like you're going to be representing a form of spiritual and psychological guidance for people that is no less seminal or important than a therapist or a minister in a church. That's going to be what you're going to represent to other people, and it is really special and terrifying if you're somewhat aware of what's going on. And sorry for talking for so long.
No,
but
go for it, man. That's why I gave you forum. Go for it.
I would love to hear your thoughts on that and Fringe's as well. But I felt it was really special when we noticed there was a transition happening, where there was an acceptance that, when the doom, our spaces that the three of us did, we were finding our voice, and other people were realizing, like, oh wow, we have a place to go. And it was, I can't overstate how special that was for me when I realized collectively there was a change in the conversation happening.
One of the things that I love about you guys is that you're real people with real experiences. And Fringe, I would love to have you on the show one night, just you and me, to talk about, if you're comfortable with it, to talk about some of your experiences. I mean, on your Twitter account or X account, you know, you mentioned MK Ultra and My Lab. I'm not sure if that's something you talk publicly about or not, but if you do, I'd love to be able to pick your brain on our show here with that.
Oh yeah, I would love that. Thank you so much for that invite. I'll take you up on it.
Yeah, let's do that, because I really want to know more about that. I have a lot of friends who've gone through those programs, one who is extremely close to me, and it's not a pretty, you know, like I was talking to her just the other day, and she's been having some issues again. And
Yeah, and this is the stuff, Dave, that I think, you know, are we ever actually going to get disclosure? Because it's pretty dark when you think about the things that are going on behind the scenes that most Americans have no idea about.
there's way too many secrets to give up. Way too many secrets. Like with you, with My Labs, MK Ultra. What imagine, and I always say this to our listeners, and I know we got a ton of your followers watching on X right now, but I always say this to our listeners. Just imagine inside the Pentagon that there is this UFO Pandora's box that has every secret in there. Imagine if they open up that box and the US government actually has a list of American citizens that have been taken. Think of the
And
loss.
just from my own understanding, there is a list. There is a list. And I mean, it's not just an idea. It's actually real.
Yeah, I've heard that too, you know. And I just think that, man, you know, they have no choice but to cover it up. They really don't have a choice but to make sure that it doesn't come out. I mean, it could literally wreck the country. It could wreck the entire republic on this one phenomena. And that's scary for a lot of people. What's it going to do to the economy? What's it going to do to religion? What's it going to do to people who are just suffering, as I do, from mental health with depression and anxiety? What's it going to do? You know, I mean, these are real questions that need to be tackled. And I think Lou Elizondo said it in one of his pieces of writing leading up to his book a couple weeks ago when it came out. Like, this is a huge concern for many within the walls of the Pentagon on how the populace is going to react. What are you guys' thoughts?
For me, I tend to say things that are not popular, but I push back on the idea that so many in ufology have this idea that this is no big deal, just come out with it, just tell us the truth. And I absolutely disagree with that. I just for my own self, in a personal way, I went through a devastating crisis, a personal crisis, when I realized the totality of what was happening just with me, and then the other things that are going on behind the scenes. And I don't think that the actual real hard truth, if it comes out, I think a lot of people absolutely will not be able to handle it. And, you know, people think, oh, that's silly, we're grown-ups, we're adults, of course we can handle it. But I don't think people understand the depth of the deception that's going on in the world right now. And I am concerned about if and when this ever does come out. I don't think we're going to get the entire truth, but even half of it, it's going to be devastating to a lot of people. So I completely disagree. You know, just give us disclosure. It's totally fine. We can handle it. We're all adults. I think those people are the people who have no idea what we're actually dealing with.
I'm glad to see we're on the same page with that. I really am glad to see that we're there. Ulrich, what's your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I think Fringe is an experiencer in her own class. You could even reasonably say that an individual like Fringe alone is disclosure, is catastrophic disclosure. If we imagine 3 different scenarios, the Grush scenario, you know, the narrow public hearings we've had, but the 11.5 hours of testimony that was in closed hearings that we didn't get to experience as the public, a hypothetical where the president does like a soft or controlled disclosure we are not alone, but then is virtually silent on is silent on virtually everything else. And then a more open disclosure where we have public hearings where experiencers talk about abductions, positive and negative, but maybe talk about some of the more gruesome and painful medical procedures that go on. You would in those three scenarios, you would imagine that the public hearings where an experiencer talks about the brutal medical things that some people recall would be the most revelatory. But that hearing is the one, if you look at the Soul Foundation's timeline by Carl Nell, that's the one that the public is believed to be least prepared for, right? It's the actual experiencer's experience that is considered one of the most catastrophic things, but that's the one you actually don't need to wait on. That is the catastrophic disclosure you can have right now without government sanctioned approval, right? And so that's really where there's extraordinary power. If you have Fringe on your show, you're going to hear things that are more catastrophic than you'll probably ever hear in any kind of hearing, right? Closed or open. My view is that catastrophic disclosure is the best case scenario, including complete collapse of our financial system and lives lost in the double digits of millions. I think this is the best case scenario. I fully agree with both of you that the world is not ready for it. And I fully disagree with the assertion that whether we're prepared or ready for it is the right question. I think it's the very wrong question. I think the more unprepared we are for it, the more it needs to happen. I think disclosure is not disclosure if it is not catastrophic, because the alternative, I believe, is going to be World War III or worse. I believe we're at a place where we can't afford to do a gentle sort of trauma-based therapy and talk the patient through over 5 to 20 years. This swimmer is panicking and drowning, and in this case, we need to knock them out and pull them to shore. And that's catastrophic disclosure, and that's the most ethical decision that we need to make right now. That's a very harsh view, and it's kind of a shock view, but I think the world will be much better off if we weather the growing pains of a catastrophic disclosure versus wait for disclosure to become tearing through our broken maps, because at that point we'll be reacting. Am I making sense? At least that's my personal view.
Oh yeah, I think that's wonderful. And on that note, guys, I'm going to be saying goodnight to you guys. And I want to say big thank you for coming on. This was a great eye opener for what you guys do for me, my audience, and I hope my audience can share some time with you guys and give you guys a follow and a listen as well.
Dave, feel free to come on our into our space. I think we'd love to have you.
What time do you usually do it on Thursdays?
We have a fairly broad window. It depends on how long you want to space with us. It depends on how long you want to go. I have a hard cutoff 11 p.m. Eastern time, but anytime before that, whatever Fringe and Tiff can do, we're open to have you on.
Well, I promise you I will take a look and we'll do that soon.
That would be wonderful. Yeah, that would be wonderful, Dave.
Let's do that. And Fringe, can we get I'll send you a Facebook message about your experiences, and we'll line up a date on when we can get you on the show.
Yeah, sounds good. Send me a message on X, Twitter.
I will.
Thank you so much for having us, Dave, and thank you to Nicole for setting it up. And I want to say just very quickly, we're not the only ones doing this. There are phenomenal, fantastic Spaces hosts on UFO Twitter. It's not just us; it's a whole community, and I hope some of your listeners join us.
I hope so too, and thank you for you guys coming on and promoting this on X. I'm seeing hundreds of new names that maybe have never heard of our show or maybe they've heard of it, but they've never tuned in before. And I hope we have done enough here to earn their follow and their subscribership as well, because that's how communities grow. When we're all talking on the same language here, and doing it decently and everything. And you guys are amazing. Thank you very much for your time and sharing yourselves with our audience. I can't say thank you enough.
Fringe, Dave, you both have a wonderful night.
Thank you,
All right.
Dave. Thank you, Nicole, Tiff, and Ulrich. Good night.
Absolutely. Good night, everybody. Have a great weekend. Don't forget this weekend, we have Sweet Robbie G, Saturday and Sunday, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 Eastern for After Hours. And then on Sunday before After Hours, Jessica Jones is in for the Cryptid Huntress and Off the Trails. Well, I'll see you next time. I'll be back on Monday where my guest will be. Yeah, Jason Gomet is going to come back. He had a little bit of an issue with food poisoning last night, so that's why we missed him. But we'll get him back on Monday to talk some UFOs with us. See you later, everybody. Much love, and we'll talk to you soon.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.